I'm animated. I'm alive. I'm a human. I like to eat, and I'm coming.
And we're back. Time to rank some more different PNGs on top of a grey background. This time with Part 3 units. But yeah, no, Grail Mercs, super popular. Alright, let's talk about them. Most of the Grail Mercs are pretty good, so it's going to be a nice refresher from the Crimean units, where most of them are average or bad. And we're starting with a fucking whopper. It's everyone's favorite. It's Ike. Ike is fucking absurd in this game. Ike is an S tier unit. I'm going to put him above Rhys. Ike is one of the most improved units from Path of Radiance to Radiant Dawn. Ike is fucking absurd in this game. I always forget just how absurdly strong Ike is in this game, and the game wants you to know it. At many points, they will say, if you've forgotten how good Ike is, we're going to add something else on top of his already ridiculously good blank to make him even stronger. For starters, let's go over what Ike does poorly. Ike is kind of similar to Heart in that his res is bad. It's 7. That's bad. That's a bad res stat, and there's a reasonable... like I said before, there's enough magic enemies to the point where that can potentially be dangerous. Bad res stat, and his res growth is 15%. He's basically never growing res. Oh god, this unit, you're fucking unusable. He doesn't join with any skills, unlike Heart, which is slightly annoying, but at the very least he will gain Nihil upon promotion, so he doesn't get eclipsed by the Black Knight, because I'm willing to bet that was a playtesting disaster when they got to that fight, and I kept getting eclipsed over and over again, so they said, fuck it, give him Nihil automatically. He is locked to swords, which you would interpret as a bad thing for some characters, but for Ike, I will just say this now, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the slightest. Alright. I'm pretty sure that's everything bad with Ike. He's an infantry unit, but he has 7 move, which is, you know, it's more than enough to move around. I've never had an issue with Ike's mobility. He can be shoved around. His weight isn't high to the point where he can't be shoved. Like, units like Gatrie and Boyd can shove him, I believe, so it's not that bad. He can be hit by sleep staves. He generally, like... The enemy does tend to use more and more sleep saves as the game goes on, and he is a pretty good target for that. If you're the enemy, and if you're the fucking conniving enemy, brewing up a devious scheme, and you're just gonna press sleep on Icon over and over and again, because he probably has a 100% hit chance, because his res is garbage. Which is annoying, but if you have a restore staff, it's like, whatever. Moving on. Let's go over what Ike does well. Everything else. Ike, most importantly with Ike, Ike's bases are probably the best in the game in terms for, like, a character appearing. Ike's stats, aside from res and magic, literally every stat is absurd. Ike has 44 base health. That's great. 24 base strength. That's incredibly high. 28 base skill. That's absurd. I want to say he starts like 2 points away from skill cap, which is ridiculous. 23 speed. That's enough to double a good amount of things when he joins, which is really good. And 21 defense, so he's bulky as shit. He has an effective health of 65, which is disgusting. For your lord. Everything about him in his first appearance is good. Other than the fact that he won't double every single unit right off the bat, but guess what? There's literally only one character in the Grail Mercenaries who will double every single unit right off the bat. And we'll get to her. But the fact of the matter is, outside of Mia and Shinon, nobody else is, like, doubling as much as Ike is. And those two characters are also very strong. Ike is just so good. He's an S tier rather than A tier, in my professional opinion, because Ike is a no-brainer unit. It is so difficult to get Ike killed. In comparison to your other Lord unit, Micaiah is super easy to get killed if you get careless and accidentally leave her out of position, because basically any physical attack will immediately melt her, reduce her to ashes. Ike, on the other hand, is very difficult to kill. his starting defense and his HP just make him so fucking bulky. He has 3 authority stars, which means every time he's the leader of the army you're using, he will grant, I want to say, 15 hit and avoid to everyone. And he also has the Earth Affinity, which means that he can get a maximum of plus 60 avoid for the sole, like, massive cost of existing next to another Earth support. Even though he doesn't need to be a dodge tank because his bulk is already absurd. Let's look over his growth as well. Ike's growth aren't actually that good. He has good HP, strength, and skill growth, and the rest of his growth are, like, kind of okay. 35% speed growth is bad, but it's not bad to the point where he's like, oh, he'll fall behind, he'll start getting doubled. Like, his base speed is 23, he's not going to get doubled by anything. And because his bases are so obscenely high, Ike's actually a pretty good recipient for bonus XP. Just because you can cap his skill really quickly. His HP, I want to say, caps at like 50, and his defense isn't too far off either, his strength isn't too far off. Like, he is a pretty good recipient for bonus XP. Also, I haven't talked about Blossom at all, the skill Blossom. Blossom is kind of a gimmicky skill. It quote makes your growth better. It doesn't actually do that in Radiant Dawn. It effectively lets you roll your growths again when you get a level up. So instead of, I don't know if level ups are 1 RN in Radiant Dawn, but they must be. Maybe it lets you roll 3 RN on growths or something, which would be absurd. Which technically, I'm not going to get into the exact percentages. Blossom make level up better, make growth better in a way. And Ike's actually a pretty good recipient for that, because he gains XP pretty slowly because of his absurdly high level. He's a level 11 promoted unit for early part 3, which I want to say is like the 3rd highest level in your group. It means he's very close to promotion right away, although his promotion is forced at the start of part 4, so don't feel like you have to funnel too much XP into him. And again, like it's a case of you don't even really need to invest into him. You could not dump a single level into Ike and he'd be good throughout all of part 3. No joke! Like, his stats are good enough. Like, 23 speed will make him, like, stop doubling towards the end of part 3. Which sucks, but he's still dealing, like, enough damage with 24 strength, and the spoilers, his personal weapon, the Etard, which I always feel a little bit uncomfortable saying. Anyone else feel a little bit uncomfortable saying that? Wow, my personal weapon, the Spagot. Yeah, the Etard is, like, it's a pretty good personal weapon. It's only 1 range for a sword, which isn't the best, but it's, I want to say, like, 12 might, which is pretty good. It's like a steel blade with reasonably good hit. He doesn't get weighed down by it at all. It has 50 uses, and you get 2 of them. It's basically impossible to burn through both of them. It means you don't ever have to, like, give him extra weapons, other than a wind edge, if you want 1-2 range. But let's talk about his actual personal weapon. Let's talk about the Ragnall. This is what I mean when they were like, oh, in case you thought Ike was, like, starting to fall off, here's the Ragnall from 311 onwards. The Ragnall, as I'm sure you're aware, is Ike's famous weapon. It is a 1-2 range sword with 18 might, and that's all you need to know. And, oh yeah, and also it gives you +5 defense when he has it equipped, so his bulk is even more ridiculous. So even if you didn't level Ike a single time from 3 prologue all the way up to 311, he now has 28 defense at base, plus 44 health. This unit's fucking unkillable. Even if he falls into a pitfall or gets sleeped, unless he is surrounded by mages, all wielding Arctomes, he's just that fucking difficult to kill. It's insane. Ike is such a juggernaut in this game, compared to Path of Radiance, where he's a dinky little bitch. It's a 1-2 range sword with 18 might, and infinite durability. He has it permanently equipped, like, you'd never use anything else. It absolutely trivializes any weaknesses that he might have had, because now, even if he doesn't double, he's still dealing amazing damage, and he doesn't even need to be at 1 range to do it. He can just slice something from afar for like 30 damage and just set up a kill for someone else. Because Ike doesn't need XP. There's probably other units that would benefit from that XP. Like a Boyd, or a Gatrie, or a me, or any of the Grail Mercs, because pretty much all of the Grail Mercs are at worst, like, okay. Even someone like Rhys, or Mist, or Rolf. Rolf's perfect, but we'll get to him. We'll get to the other S tier unit. Trust me, guys, trust me! I don't need to say anything more about Ike. He's a no-brainer unit, much like Ha. His bases are insane, his availability is great. Available for almost all of Part 3, a good chunk of Part 4. He doesn't do everything like Ha. He's not as good as Ha, purely just because Ha can fly. But, on the other hand, Ike gets access to an incredible personal weapon, is the Lord, so he's force deployed, so he has a free deployment slot. Absurdly good bases, okay growths, but, like, he doesn't even really need that many levels to be... Like, he doesn't need levels to be good. I would almost say, like, Ha does need some kind of XP to be good, whereas Ike, on the other hand, is so strong at base. Like, he will just be absolutely decimating combat. Probably, like, in my opinion, just the strongest raw combat unit in the game that is actually available. Like, Jill's really good, but she needs growing. Zahak will fall off at some point. A unit like Ha needs something like a Speedwing to make him double. Whereas Ike, he at least doubles some things at base. And he's just so absurd, man. You could maybe argue for him in A tier, but I think he's just so strong. He's the strongest infantry unit in the game, for sure. He also gets axes upon promotion, so he can use the hammer. The coveted hammer. God, there are so many generals in late game. Please, dear God, give me another hammer. I need to bonk these fools into the next dimension. Yeah, Ike, he's absurd. You don't need to give him any skills. You don't need to give him any boosters. You can give him bonus XP. He's a good recipient of it, because he'll probably level... Like, if he caps strength and skill, he's most likely to get, like, HP, speed, defense on levels, which could help him out a lot. Like, if Ike gets faster, he just... Like, the only reason you'd really invest into Ike is like, alright, I want you to consistently double everything. Everything! And if Ike consistently doubles everything, he just murders everything. That's the only thing holding him back, is the fact that he might fall behind on speed. That's it. That's literally it. Like, his resistance is so easily remedied by stuff like Restore Staffs, or, you know, just one-shotting the mage before they get to act. Wow, nice tome, Poindexter. Eat this fucking 40 damage sword blast. Ike's absurd. One of the strongest Lord characters in the series. Alright, second Grail Merc. Oh my god, these units are so good. It's really nice. It's really refreshing to just look through the roster of the Grail Mercs and be like, oh, this unit's good, this unit's good, this unit's good. Oh, hi Soren, this unit's good, this unit's good. Next up is Titania, who is also incredibly strong, but I am of the opinion that Titania is a little bit overhyped in Radiant Dawn. I'm gonna place her in A tier. I'm gonna place her at the top of A tier, though. Is she better than Jill? No, she's not. Jill's better. She is, like, the 5th best character in the game, I'd say. Titania is absurd, but not as absurd as everyone says. And we'll get into why I think that in a bit. Let's go over why Titania is fantastic right off the bat. Titania joins as, I want to say, like a level 16 paladin from the start of part 3, pretty much all the way through. As long as you got the Grail Mercs, you got Titania. I believe she is force deployed in the first 2 chapters, but after that, whatever. And level 16 paladin is insanely high level. That is literally 4 levels away from promotion if you want to use a Master Crown to just get that free extra level. She starts so close to Gold Knight, she basically requires no investment to get her there. And because Grail Merc chapters generally just want you to use the Grail Mercs as much as possible, chances are you're going to be using her whether you want to or not. Because she is just so available and so goddamn reliable. Because Titania has very, very good bases. Like, I want to say her base strength is 25, which I think her base strength is literally 1 point away from capping, which is insane. Her only bad, like, stat is HP, and that's kind of just been her gimmick, because, spoilers, she's the Jagan from the previous game, and Jagans generally have bad health, unless you're Vander, in which case your only good stat is HP and all your other stats are garbage. Thanks, Engage. You managed to fuck up the Jagan. Good job. Yeah, no, Titania is fantastic. Like, strength is great, skill is great. All of her stats, other than HP, are just great. She's super bulky. Even with her low HP, she is still reasonably difficult to kill. But she's not invincible, and that's why I think she's not an S tier. Let's move on to why. Let's establish why I don't think she's an S tier. Number 1. Titania is not impossible to kill like Ike and Ha. She can die. It's happened to me in the past, and it is frustrating when it happens. She's not invincible. She's not dodgy enough to be in a dodge tank, and she's not bulky enough to be completely invincible like a unit like, say, Ha or Ike. Effective weapons aren't really a thing that much of the time. There are Horse Slayers occasionally, but you do have to be careful because a Horse Slayer will just melt her. I believe there's one in 3 Prologue and maybe one in 3-1, but after that they get few and far between. But yeah, you do need to be a little bit careful. She has the skill counter, which is completely fucking worthless and garbage in both Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn. I don't even want to look at what its, like, trigger percent chance is, but it's basically enemy attack, you have, like, a fucking, I don't know, luck divided by 8 chance to deal 1 damage back. It's garbage. It's complete garbage. Take it off or sell it. And more importantly, I think more than her slightly disappointing bulk, is Titania has 21 speed. Oh, we're back on that delightful 21 speed. Titania doesn't double enough for my liking. She doesn't. She does not double quite enough for me to put her in S tier. If Titania had literally 2 more points of speed, maybe even like 1, I'd say she's an S tier unit. But Titania's biggest issue for me is that she doesn't double anything at base. In the introduction chapter, she doubles nothing. Meaning she's going to be dealing a good chunk of damage. No, don't get me wrong, she's dealing like 40 plus damage with Steel Poleaxe and 25% or 25 base strength, which is incredibly good. That's probably higher than every other unit on your team. That's great. Don't get me wrong, Titania is a very strong unit, but she's a very strong unit times 1 rather than a very strong unit times 2, so to say. And while Titania's growths are actually pretty good, she has like great offensive growths with 60% strength, 55% skill, and 50% speed. She's not going to be gaining many levels. That's the thing. Titania starts at level 16, so she gains XP extremely slowly. She's gaining like, not like 1 XP, but like 5 XP a kill. Titania generally will become a Gold Knight before part 4, but it's slow. Like, she will level up slowly. Much like a case of if Edward misses speed, he gets crippled. Or if Nephany misses strength, she gets crippled. If Titania doesn't get speed on her first level, she is not doubling fucking anything. Let's say you get a level for her in chapter 3-2. Just level 16 to level 17. Bing! HP, strength, defense, resistance. Okay, it was a good level. You know what she didn't get? She didn't get speed. She ain't doubling anything. And now I have to wait 2 more chapters because she's leveling even slower. Like, she will not level any faster. She ain't getting any younger. Yeah, that's her biggest issue, which is a shame because all of her other aspects are really, really fantastic. And yes, you can use a speed wing on her, but it's also like it's just kind of a waste. Because 23 speed, much like Ike, it's enough to double some things, but it's not enough to double everything. And if I'm using a speed wing on someone, I want it to be on a unit who will now double everything rather than on a unit who will double some things. What else can you say about Titania? She's got excellent availability, exact same as Ike. She's available for most of part 3 and then most of part 4. She's force deployed. No, I don't think she's force deployed in part 4, but she is forced into the Grail army, which doesn't hinder in the slightest. She has to deal with 1 indoors chapter. Oh no. She has permanent access to 1-2 range with hand axes and short axe. I believe she starts with a short axe. She starts with a much stronger hand axe, which is always lovely. Gold Knight's a decent promotion. I think Silver Knight's better just because its speed cap is higher, but Gold Knight's still perfectly good. You get access to swords, woohoo. You won't be doing anything with that. She can use the Irvin. She's a pretty good user of it. It gives her +3 res and is an absurdly high might weapon. So even if Titania isn't doubling by endgame, which she probably won't be because Paladin caps will screw her over, she will still be absolutely hitting like a fucking freight train. Because Irvin, I think, has like 24 might or something obscene. It's insanely high. I was Grail using that thing. So with her obscenely high strength, her good strength growth, and weapons like Irvin, and forged hand axes and stuff like that, she doesn't fall off. She's not a unit that falls off. Like compared to a lot of the other units in A tier, like Soth and Zahark and Volug, Titania doesn't fall off because her start is incredibly strong. And again, I'd say like Ike, even if you don't use her, she's still going to be useful in Part 4. Because in Part 4, I feel like you are generally hungry for good units whenever you can get them. Especially in stuff like, I want to say, the Grail Army, because the only immediately good units in that army are Ike and Nyla, and everyone else isn't immediately fantastic. But I'd say Titania is, other than those two units, the strongest unit in the army by default. Just incredibly good. She has Canto, high move, like, she just has so many good things going for her. Literally the only thing holding her back is like average speed. It's not even bad. It's average. It's average speed. Because she won't get doubled by anything outside of Swordmasters, because Swordmasters are absolute freaks with their 40 base speed or whatever. Why is Ashra blessing them? These fucking Poindexes are ludicrously strong. You know what? I'm going to put her above Jill, because I still think Jill requires so much, like, babying at the very start. And, like, Jill can snowball out of control. She's one of the few units in this game that can just absolutely dominate once she starts snowballing, but I think her start's really weak. Whereas Titania's, she's just so good and reliable. She's like Nolan. She's just really reliable. I know she's always going to contribute something to my army. Yeah, no, Titania. I'd say S tier is probably done at this point. I don't think any more units will go in S tier off the top of my head, but Titania is absolutely the unit that is closest to S tier, other than the 3 units in there. She's just shy of that. If she started with literally 2 more points of speed, I'd say she's S tier. But she's not quite there. If she consistently doubled some things at base, she'd be so much better. But that's the thing. She doesn't double anything at base. A lot of good things going for Titania. The only thing holding her back is her just kind of average speed, and maybe slightly below average bulk for a unit like her. But still an absolutely excellent unit. Top of A tier. So close to S tier. Sorry, Titania. I believe in redhead supremacy. Capping off the trio, or I guess the heads of the Grail Mercs, it's Soren! It's everyone's favorite twink. Is he a twink? I don't fucking know. I need to look up what body types are at some point. Soren is a weird unit. I talked about him earlier. I'm not entirely sure if he's B tier or C tier. I think I'm going to place him at the top of C tier. Soren is a unit that's he's very average. He's just, Soren is so heavily held back by Sage as a class. It's unfucking canny. I'm gonna go, let's talk about what he does well first. Soren has really good base magic of 23. He does actually do reasonably good chip damage. The rest of his stats are like fine for the most part. I think 18 speed's pretty annoyingly low. That's low to the point where you're gonna get doubled by Swordmasters, but again, Soren shouldn't be on the front lines if you're using a Sage. Sages are not tanky in this game, and while he does get a bond support with Ike, and you can build up Soren Ike support and make them both really dodgy if you want. I don't know, I feel like double Earth support is just bad. Like, just pair Ike with someone like, I don't even know, Zahark. What's another Earth support? Oscar. Oscar's pretty good in this game. But yeah, Soren is... That's the thing. I've gone over basically every other Sage in the game, and the weaknesses of those characters are absolutely present with Soren. Soren starts really close to a cap with a lot of his stats, which makes him actually a really good candidate for bonus experience in a way. Like, his magic and res and skill, I want to say, are all reasonably close to being capped. Which means once he caps those, you can shove bonus experience onto him to guarantee that he will get, like, speed, luck, defense, speed, strength, defense, speed, HP, strength, stuff like that. And getting a speed cap will make him, get him to the point where he will somewhat double. Not much, somewhat. He will double occasionally, which is nice, because his magic is high enough and wind is like okay. It's not terrible like thunder is, but it's still not very good. And that's fine. I find that Soren caps stats very quickly. I think that Soren's actually a very good candidate for the Master Crown you get. I forget when you get it. I think it's like 3-5 or 3-6 or something. Not 3-6, that's a Dawn Brigade chapter. Like 3-4 or 3-5. And because Soren caps so many stats early, I think he's actually a really good candidate for the Master Crown, because Arcsage is like an okay class. It's not great. Its promotional skill of Flare isn't very good, because it's not a crit, it just nullifies enemy res, which adds like 20 damage onto your attack. Like, Flare is... I've seen plenty of Flares that just don't one-shot the opponent, which is so depressing. And more importantly, he gets Ian Staves. I can't fucking believe they gave Arcsage Ian Stave. It's not even like C. It means you have to staff grind a fucking tier 3 unit. It's unbelievable. Makai gets C rank on her first promotion. She gets to use Physic at base. Soren has to grind heal all the way up to C before he can use Physic, which sucks. But at the very least, I feel like he can get Arcsage the earliest, which makes him probably the best of the mages, in my opinion. Like, his bases are okay, his availability is probably the best of all the mages, other than Ilyana, but Ilyana has such a rough start and can require pretty heavy investing, whereas Soren doesn't require that much of an investment to get going. Like, I find, like, you can maybe just you might just view it as feeding him kills, but even just giving him chip damage will give him an occasional level, and like it feels like it's not that difficult to just use Soren in the background and not even consider, like, I'm not bringing him into the tower, but I'll still level him up, because you generally do need to use a good, like, supply of units in Radiant Dawn, because your army's going to split at some point, and you will need to you'll divvy up your good units accordingly. And I find that just giving Soren like 5, 6, 7 levels, he'll cap most of his important stats with bonus XP and stuff like that, and you can just slap a Master Crown on him, and boom, he's ready for part 4. He'll be, like, dealing enough damage to be useful, he'll have enough speed to not get doubled by stuff. He won't be bulky in any way, he'll still, you know, die if you leave him in enemy range, but he can still very much hold his own. But the problem is, he's still held back by the shittiest class in the game that isn't Cat Lagoos. Plain and simple, Sages are bad. Mages are bad, Sages are bad, Arcsage. Ian stays, man, that's unbelievable. He has Adept at base. Adept is actually a really good skill in this game. Maybe not really good, it's pretty good. It's a speed % chance to just give you an additional attack, which for Soren can be okay. It can give him at base, it's an 18% chance to get an additional attack, which is like you could almost just view that as like as a separate crit chance in a way. Because I feel like if Soren doubles a unit early, he won't be killing them per se, but he will be dealing like 80% of their health. Which is good, but it's not like invaluable on him. It's okay on him. I feel like most characters use Adept well. No, I don't think there's a single character in this entire game that's going to say no to an additional attack. The thing is, Adept is a speed-based chance, and Soren's speed is so, like, mediocre, and his growth isn't particularly good. His growth, I haven't gone over his growth. His growth are, like, fine. He has an 80% magic growth, which is obviously great. He'll cap it really quickly. 70% res, 60% skill. He'll cap all those really quickly, but his speed growth is 35%, so it probably won't level outside of bonus experience. So giving Adept to already fast units, like Shinon or Mia, is generally just a better investment. Yeah, that's just better candidates for Adept. If Sage was less bad, like, Soren's a very good unit in Path of Radiance, and then they absolutely just broke both the kneecaps of Mage, and Magic has, like, a permanent in Fire Emblem once we got to Radiant Dawn, so Soren is he's just not very good. He's fine, he's the strongest of the non-Micaiah mages, I'd say, but he's still not very good. That's literally it. Sage is a bad class, and that's why he's in C tier, rather than something like B tier. If Sage was a bit better, again, if Sage has got staves at their second tier class instead of Arcsage, Soren would be in B tier, 100%. Okay, who is next up? Producer? Why, it's only Mist! It's everyone's favorite little gal. She's not a little gal, she's a strong and empowered I actually really like Mist as a character. Unfortunately, as a unit in this game, she leaves a lot to be desired. Mist is a very peculiar unit in this game. It feels like they didn't really know what to do with her. She's either the top, like towards the top of D tier or the bottom of C tier. I'm gonna place her on the bottom of D tier. Because Mist is a very, very straightforward but strange unit in a weird way. She's a healer with the Grail Mercenary. She's not the exclusive healer. I feel like if she was the only healer, I'd be a bit more generous with her. But the fact that she is not even competing with healing for healing XP, because I feel like you take enough damage in the Grail Merc chapters to justify having 2 healers. I mean, you're taking 2 healers in the early chapters regardless, because they're both force deployed. You're taking Mist and you're taking Rhys. It's kind of difficult to justify using Mist in the long term, in my opinion, because Mist doesn't really have a purpose outside of healing early in the Grail Mercenary chapters, because let's just go over her stats and such. Mist has atrocious bases. Now that I'm taking another gander at them, holy fuck, these are awful. I remember them being a little bit better than this. These are atrocious. These are like unpromoted bases. These are absolutely fucking hideous. Jesus Christ, you're a level 1 promoted unit, girl? Christ, like huff a Speedwing or something. Yeah, literally all of these stats outside of Res and Luck are god-awful. I do remember the fact that Mist basically gets doubled by everything in early Grail Merc. She is both made of paper and gets one-rounded by basically every unit, which means you cannot, like, play particularly dangerously with her. You need to heal. It's like, imagine a situation where, let's say, Ike is damaged. Good one. But Ike is damaged in this situation, and you're trying to move your units along as you do in Fire Emblem. And there's a case where, well, I want to heal Ike, but I want to move Mist at the same time. Well, I can't move Mist too far forward, because otherwise she's going to be in danger of dying. So I have to move Mist to the currently positioned Ike before Ike moves, which means Mist kind of just falls behind, while Ike and the rest of the Scooby gang move forward. I'm sorry if I didn't portray that very well, but you kind of get the idea. And her growths, if I remember correctly, are absolutely just... God, what were they thinking with this unit? Yeah, she's definitely D tier. I'm putting her in D tier purely just because she is a healer, and she, at the very least, like, I'll establish this. The best part about Mist compared to all the other healers in this game, other than Alencia, is she has one more move than a bishop. That's it. That's literally the entire thing. As a cleric, she has one more move because she is counted as an infantry unit rather than a magic unit, which is really nice. That +1 point of move does come in handy occasionally. I didn't realize this until my most recent playthrough, but yeah, she has 7 move as opposed to 6. But 1 point of move isn't that significant. In every other regard, I'd say she's pretty much just worse Rhys. And Rhys isn't very good to begin with, which is the funny part. Like, outside of healing, like you gotta remember, there are very few utility staves in Radiant Dawn. There's no, like, or I guess there's stuff like the ward and the sleep and the silent, like, you get a silent stuff so late into the game once you recruit Oliver, but it's like basically useless at that point. Even the sleep stuff doesn't have that much use in the game. You use it to sleep Ike, and that's kind of it. So yeah, like utility saves outside of the Torch and 3-6 are basically non-existent. And for the Grail Mercs especially, you basically get nothing. It's you're healing or you're restoring. That's it. That's pretty much it. It's physics spam the game. And when Mist can do that perfectly well, she doesn't do it like any better than Rhys would. In fact, she does it worse because her magic is lower, because her stats are absolutely atrocious and her growths are absolutely atrocious. And while like she gets a lot of unique things. That's the interesting part about Mist, is that she gets so many unique things and she's still terrible. Not terrible, she's just bad. Like, she's poor. Maybe the top of D tier is a bit generous. I'll leave it there for now though. Like, Mist gets a personal weapon in the Florette. A personal weapon that's also really good. I feel like people really don't talk about the Florette very much, but it's actually a really good personal sword. And the reason people don't talk about it is because it's on a unit who doesn't use it well at all. If the Florette was the personal weapon for Ike, it'd be fucking insane. Because it's a 1-2 range sword with 15 might and 15 crit for some reason. 15 crit surprisingly comes in handy every now and then. Like, its stats are really good, but it doesn't use magic. It uses strength. If it used magic, if it attacked with the magic stat and hit res, it would be much better if it was like the Sonic Sword in Path of Radiance. Because the Sonic Sword in Path of Radiance is basically Mist's birthright. It's perfect for her. And like, she gets a horse upon promotion. She gets +2 move, which is really, really nice. She gets Canto. She gets Soul, which won't help her at all, because, like, fucking, are you ever using her for combat? That's the thing with a lot of healers, is that you would like to have at least the option for combat. With Rhys, I feel like I use him for combat occasionally. Not very often, but occasionally enough to the point where I'm like, Rhys can probably do like a good chunk of damage there, or Rhys can finish that guy off. Whereas Mist is going to be doing no damage and getting doubled by everything, because her base stats are fucking atrocious. Fucking atrocious. There's no other way to put it. Her base stats are absolutely abysmal. But she can heal, and healing is invaluable, especially in early parts, and her promotion is really good, and she has a pref weapon. She just has a lot of things going for her. She has a lot of bond supports. I think she has a bond support with Ike, Rolf, and Boyd, if I'm not mistaken, which is nice. There's a ton of bond supports in the Grail Merc, so you can use those really, really nicely. She's very, like, mobile. She has Miracle. That's something. That's a skill you can sell for $500. Literally the only thing she has going for over other healers is increased move. That's it. And Canto. Canto is nice. I'm not going to say no to Canto, but, like, Alencia just does it better. The only thing, like, the reason Alencia is in C tier as opposed to something like B tier is because her availability is garbage. Mist does have good availability, but she's also probably the most fragile unit in the Grail Mercs, that you constantly have to monitor and make sure she's not in enemy range, which is really annoying on hard mode when you don't have range indicators. Fucking glaring evil eyes at the developer that did that. Again, fuck you, I hope you're dying in that well. And yeah, Mist he just fucking, like, she has all these things that just don't mean anything. Like the Florette, it's great. It's a great personal weapon. Doesn't mean shit, because she can't use it well at all. A horse, that's nice. Who fucking cares? Her growths are awful. Her stats are awful. Her promotion is good. The stat caps are still pretty bad. I brought a fucking strength capped Mist into the tower in my previous run. Guess what her fucking strength cap is on Valkyrie, her tier 3 class. That's right, it's like 20 fucking 3. I gave her the Alondike. She wasn't doing anything. It was funny though, and that's the most important part. Yeah, Mist is very straightforward. She's a healer with good mobility, which is nice. And I think if she was 6 move instead of 7 move, she'd be much lower, but I think that extra point of move is literally the only thing. Being able to use swords is nice. It doesn't matter. You're a heal bot. Welcome to being a heal bot. Let the combat units do the combat thing, and the heal bots do the healing. Sorry, Mist. Not even a main fucking character in this game. Did you know if she dies in the tower, she doesn't retreat? She actually dies. I found this out. That's brand new knowledge to me. Mist D tier for sure. Very, very mediocre healer, but you need healers in the Grail Mercs, and you ain't getting many better options for the Grail Mercs, so you may as well fucking use her. Which brings us to the other healer, Rhys. Rhys is going on the bottom of C tier, I think. But you could argue for the... Oh, I have to fucking fix the thing. Anyway, moving on to Rhys, who is going on to the bottom of C tier. But you could definitely make an argument for this unit being in D tier, everything I just said for Mist pretty much follows for Rhys in a lot of areas, and that he is completely just, like, it fits his character of, like, Rhys being very feeble and not timid, but just very fragile in combat, because the boy starts with 14 speed, which is fucking pathetic, and 7 defense, meaning that he will just die to a stiff breeze. What I said about Mist, about having to be really careful about where you place him, absolutely applies here, because Rhys's combat, while a bit better than Mist, because he does actually do damage thanks to his reasonably high magic stat. I think he starts with 23, maybe 22 magic, which is good. I will admit, Rhys's bases aren't as bad as Mist, because he at least has good areas. Like, his res, his magic, and his luck are all very, very good. The problem is, his speed's fucking atrocious, his growth is atrocious, and his cap is atrocious. Which means he will never get fast. This is one of those units that will never double anything. Rhys will actually never double anything, unless you, like, fucking RN rig his levels to get speed every single time. He just won't. A 35% speed growth, I feel like 35% speed growth pops up every, like, 5 seconds. I'm seeing bad wolf over here, Christ. I think a big problem with his growth is just they help him in his areas that are already good. Like, he doesn't really need more magic or luck or resistance. I'd rather he just... Honestly, like, I wouldn't mind some defense and health on this boy. Or, like, speed. If he can't get speed, at least give him some health. 40% health growth is just not good enough. But yeah, he's a healer in the early game of the Grail Mercs. He does exactly what Mist does, but the difference between these two is that his mobility is slightly worse at the cost of him actually being able to do something other than heal, which is deal moderately okay damage. It's okay. It's like a little bit worse than Soren just because light tomes don't hit very hard. But most of the time you will probably be healing with him. Why the fuck does he start with a concoction? He has like 30 max health. Wiki, why are you telling me this? This cursed knowledge. But I'm rating him a little bit above Mist. Like, consider them very, very close. I just think that little extra oomph in combat is enough to place Rhys in C tier. He's definitely the worst character in C tier though. And there isn't that much to talk about. Very similar availability, or actually not even similar, just the exact same availability. Most of the maps aren't particularly bad for him. A lot of the Grail are actually like a lot of maps in the Grail Mercs are like 3-2 especially. There's a lot of maps where you need to move around a lot, and that -1 move, again, you would think 1 point of movement wouldn't be that significant, but in a lot of the Grail Merc chaps, you need to constantly be moving. In 3-3 and 3-2 and 3 prologue, you just always need to be moving. And if Rhys falls behind a little bit, he's going to fall behind a lot, which can really hurt him, because you can't be too aggressive with him, otherwise he's going to get, like, like a random, not even a Swordmaster. A Swordmaster would kill him with ease. Like a fighter. Not even like a fighter, like a soldier. A random soldier Joey with 18 speed is going to come out of the fog, poke him twice, and then he'll die. Maybe once, and then he'll die. Rhys is not a tanky boy. He is just made of crackers and despair. There isn't much to talk about with this unit. Everything I said about Mist is pretty much applicable here. His weapon ranks are a little bit better. He starts with A rank and stay, but again, like, he can use mend and heal and physic at base, and that's kind of all you need to do, because, yeah, utility staves just aren't really a thing. You get ward in endgame, but you literally just use that for the most part for just XP or stuff grinding. At least that's what I did. So he doesn't really accomplish much outside of just healing, which is nice, but again, Volns are really, really good, and you're going to be using them for a lot of characters, because you want to be aggressive. Grail Mercenary chapters especially, like, you do just want to be aggressive, and healers can just fall behind. And I feel like once you get to a certain point, once you get to like 3, I think 3-3 is the chapter where they severely reduce your deployment limit, you are going to bench one healer. Almost certainly. It's either going to be Mist or Rhys. And I feel like I'd honestly rather have Mist in something like 3-3, just because the extra point of move does help, and there's a lot of choke points, so you can kind of set up our safety. Whereas Rhys falls behind a little bit, but honestly, they're very, very similar. These two are basically the same unit. They're virtually useless from part 4 onwards because they don't scale enough, or they require so much XP, or they're just not doing well enough. Like, Saint stat caps are so low to the point where if you try to use him as anything other than a staff bot, he's just going to fail miserably. And yeah, no, Light is a bad weapon type. It has fuck all for damage. And while the hit is really nice, I mean, his skill is like fine anyway. So yeah, Rhys is very straightforward, just very like average healer. He's probably the best standard healer in the game. No, Alincia's better. I'd say Alincia's better just because Alincia doesn't require any investment, and you can bring her into the tower, and I think she'd perform pretty well because her bases are very decent. I wouldn't even say great, but like they're pretty acceptable. You can use Fortify in endgame. Fortify is a really good start. I'd say Fortify is like almost mandatory for endgame because endgame bosses really, really like using AoE attacks. Something I'm glad kind of never really came back because that shit was really obnoxious. Which is nice. You can use the rescue if you find the rescue staff. There's no warp staff or anything like that. He has fire affinity. I don't know. I'm clutching at straws here. He's a very, very simple unit. He's a simple, holy boy. He's a good boy. but a wholly simple boy nonetheless. You will use him in the Grailmark chapters, and then you'll either bench him or Mist, and then the other one will continue to be the healer for the rest of Part 3, and then they'll probably do some heal work in Part 4. I remember just using a base Rhys as a healer for one of the teams. I think for the Micaiah team, I was just using Rhys, like base Rhys as a healer, because it helps to have healers. It means other units don't have to use Vuln, so you can save actions for other units by not having to have them heal on their action. So, in that way, he is useful. He's not that useful, though. He's a C tier unit. Maybe a D tier unit. You could, if you wanted me to switch the positions of Mist and Rhys, first of all, how dare you, but second of all, you're completely, like, that opinion is completely valid. And on another day, I probably would switch these two around. They're very, very similar. Yeah, Rhys, C tier. Who do we got next? We got Oscar! Cool, we got the three brothers. I love the three brothers. Some of my favorite characters in Fire Emblem. Oscar's very straightforward. Oscar is a B tier unit. B tier is surprisingly sparse when it comes to units. It's a little weird. Oscar is very, very straightforward. In a game where everyone has to have 18 different caveats of, oh, my availability is bad, or oh, I can only use this weapon, or my affinity kind of sucks, or oh, my growth's aren't very good. Like, Oscar's very, very straightforward. Oscar is a paladin with very solid bases and very decent growths. That's it. Availability isn't a problem, his growth's aren't a problem, his stats aren't a problem. The only real problem with Oscar is stat caps, because, as stated earlier, paladins have very poor stat caps in comparison to a lot of other classes. I forget what Oscar's... I want to say Silver Knight has a speed cap of 34. It's slightly faster than Gold Knight, which is nice, so maybe Oscar can get to 34 speed, which is obviously the magic number. He has the same availability... I'm not even going to bother talking about availability for the rest of the Grailmarks. They're all the same. It's all 3 prologue all the way up to blank blank. Like, yeah, Oscar's really, really straightforward. There's no skills to talk about. There's no, like, magic number or anything. His speed is 21 at base, which is enough to double basically nothing, which is unfortunate, but he might double the occasional really slow unit. But the rest of his stats make up for it. Like, 20 strength at base is pretty good. He's reasonably bulky at 17 defense, 38 health. He's, like, got the same bulk as Titania. His weapon ranks are fine. Like, he gets Solen for promotion. Solen's the best mastery skill, probably. I don't fucking know. There really isn't that much to talk about with Oscar. I find myself... Yeah, I'm kind of lost for words with this goober. He does have Earth Affinity. That's something. I want to say Earth is like a pretty surprisingly infrequent affinity in this game, so having Earth is always great. You can set up Ike Oscar support, I think from like, I want to say 3-3 onwards, which is obviously great. Helps them both out a lot, although Ike doesn't need the dodge stat because he's fucking invincible. Well, Oscar is not, so he would actually benefit from the dodge. Yeah, no, I think literally the only thing holding Oscar back from being a stronger unit, I will actually just place him above Nephany. I do think he's better than Nephany. I'd actually say he's better than Nyla. In fact, I'd actually say he's the best unit in B tier right now. I think the only thing holding him back is just Paladin being kind of a crappy class. And it's still not even that bad, because you do have Canto, and obviously the movement superiority. It's not a superiority complex if I am superior, and Oscar definitely has that superiority when it comes to Canto. Now, Canto isn't... Or, I mean, actually, no. Let me say this. Canto is useful, but there are a lot of maps in the Grail Mercenary campaign that kind of don't like Cavs. Like, 3 Prologue doesn't like Cavs. 3-2 doesn't really like Cavs. 3-3 likes Cavs. That's a good Cav chapter. 3-4 hates Cavs, because Cavs literally can't get to the end of the map because of ledges. Cavs can't interact with ledges in any way. Like, they can't climb them at all, which kind of blows. It doesn't affect them that much, but on some maps it can really screw them over. Like in 4-4, the Oliver chapter, it's actually really annoying to move a bunch of Cavs around on that map, because it's indoors, which means their movement is reduced and they can't interact with the ledges at the start of the map, which sucks. And obviously, if you put them in the desert chapter, they're going to fucking suffer, and if you put them in Hawk Army, they're going to have to deal with the swamp map, so Cavs suck shit in Part 4. They do not have a good time. Reality is pain for them. That being said, Oscar is still a very solid unit. He starts at a reasonably high level as well, so I think it is possible to get him to a Silver Knight before the end of Part 3. There's a lot of units where it's like, you're really going to have to baby them, or like fucking spoon feed them XP if you really want to get them to promotion before the end of Part 3. But I feel like Oscar can kind of almost do that naturally. Like, Titania can do that naturally, Shinon can do that naturally. And I want to say Oscar can maybe do it naturally, because I think he starts at like level 12. And his growths are like perfectly fine. I mean, 35% strength is a little bit low, but 60% speed, 65% skill is quite good. He will cap stats pretty quickly, because Paladin stat caps aren't good, unfortunately. So I think he'll cap speed and skill relatively quickly, and then you can maybe bonus XP abuse him. He will be a decent candidate for that. He'd maybe be a decent candidate for Blossom, honestly, if you want to meme around with Blossom. Silver Knight's an okay promotion in that it gives you more speed and a higher speed cap. You get bows, unfortunately, instead of something useful like axes, so you failed that promotion, but whatever, we'll get him next time. Yeah, very straightforward. He's very, very good. He's a good all-round unit. Compared to Fiona, who is a terrible all-round unit, this is a good all-round unit. This is the good version of Fiona, basically. His bases are good. It's a nice all-round mix of stats that actually help. rather than having useless stats like magic, which doesn't fucking help him in any way. His res and defense are both perfectly good. His speed's great, or not great, but it's good. His strength and skill are good. Everything about him is good. He's a very B tier unit. He's a strong unit that you will completely forget about because his personality is, I'm boring and I don't have a personality. Yeah, no, there isn't much to talk about with Oscar. A lot of these Grail Mercs are really, really simple units. It's just like, yep, good, or yep, bad. Oscar is very, very straightforward. He kill things occasionally good. He'll deal decent damage, he'll double things occasionally. It kind of sucks that he doesn't start with a javelin, he starts with a short spear, and the short spear isn't very good. But it's kind of a minor thing. His affinity is really good. His class is the only thing really holding him back. Honestly, if he was like if they ditched the horse and just made him a halberdier, he'd probably be a bit better, to be honest, because halberdier caps are better. It's generally just a better class than paladin. That's actually funny to think about. If he could dismount, he'd maybe be an A tier unit. Good availability, good stats, good growth. I have nothing to complain about this unit, other than paladin is a poopy class and Titania is basically just better. Yeah, Oscar, B tier, simple as that. And the next dearest brother is Boyd. A unit that I see, like, getting so much praise and adoration. Boyd gets so much, like, credit and praise, and I'm not entirely sure why. I think Boyd is a C tier unit. I'm going to place him towards the top of C tier. Maybe, like, the bottom of B tier. No, I'm going to place him in the top of C tier. I don't think Boyd is very good. I'm just going to say it. I'm going to fucking lay out the carpet. Bam, it's out there. We have established the overall aura of this situation. I think Boyd is a super overhyped unit in Radiant Dawn, and I don't understand why everyone likes him so much. Now, I don't think he's bad. I don't think he's a bad unit. I did mention that he could be at the bottom of B tier, but I kind of don't want to do that. I think he's a C tier unit. Boyd is slow. He's very slow. Boyd will not double anything at base. And like I said this for Titania, but Titania needs 1 point of speed to start doubling some things, and she will double slower units. Boyd will need like 4 points of speed to actually double anything. And guess what? I think he has a 40% speed growth. Let me just double check. 45% speed growth. Wow, it's fucking dashing my expectations astronomically high. A 45% speed growth is so iffy that he's going to be missing it every other level on average. It's a weighted coin toss against him gaining speed. In order for Boyd to actually like catch up to a lot of the other units like Shinon or Mia or Titania or Ike, he will now need to level speed so much. Because like the problem with Boyd isn't like his class or the rest of his growths, because the rest of his growths are actually perfectly good. I will say Boyd's growths in general are actually pretty good. Like he has 65% strength growth, 50% defense growth, 80% health, 45. Like there's no growth outside of res, which is bad. Like 45 speed is iffy. It's not bad, it's iffy. But it's iffy to the point where I don't feel confident using him. If I saw a 45% hit, I wouldn't be confident in it. It's the same with the growth rate. But yeah, the problem isn't his growth. The problem is Boyd's bases are just so mediocre. They're not very good. Like I look at his bases, 45 health. 45 health for a warrior isn't even that much. I would expect like 50 health for Boyd. 15 defense isn't that much. 22 strength for a warrior isn't that much. 20 skill? 20 skill is actually pretty good. I'll admit, 20 skill is pretty good. Clap, clap. Please clap. And yeah, like, 18 speed. 18 speed is the biggest problem with Boyd. It's absolutely the fundamental flaw with this character. It's the reason I don't think he's good compared to, like, I'm not going to compare him to Nolan because the two have very different roles. Like, the Dawn Brigade needs Nolan in order to survive. The Grail Mercs don't need Boyd because they have plenty of other good units. So it feels like Boyd just kind of gets overshadowed by a lot of other strong units, like units who will actually double, units who will do more damage, like Titania has more strength, Ike has more speed, Mia has more speed, Shinon has fucking absurd bases because they decided to make him cracked in this game as an apology for Path of Radiance. Whereas Boyd doesn't excel at anything, and it doesn't help that his starting weapons, I always notice this as well, his starting weapons are really, really unhelpful for him. He starts with, I remember this, don't even have to look it up, he starts with Killer Axe, Steel Axe, Hand Axe, no Pole Axe. This boy would make such good use of a Pole Axe because his skill stat is great. 20 skill is enough to use a Pole Axe reliably. On top of, like, what is that, 40 hit? His luck is okay, so he gets 13 hit from that. Like, he would have decent hit with a whole Pole Axe. But for the first 2 chapters, he can't use a Pole Axe because it's just simply not... I guess you could take it from Titania. But Titania's also using it well. I don't know. Yeah, no, it's just those starting weapons and his low speed. I just find that Boyd's early performance is so mediocre compared to a lot of other Grail Mercs. Like, I remember just being dazzled by a lot of their early game performance. Like, oh, Mia's doubling everything. Or, whoa, Shinon just crits everything. Ike's invincible. Even Gatrie's getting in on the fun. It's a fucking party fiesta on the oh, Boyd does nothing. Boyd does 10 damage, maybe 30 if he's lucky with the Killer Axe. Because the Killer Axe, I want to say killer weapons in this game just aren't very good. Like, instead of having 30 crit, I think they have like 20, which is really rough. I know also, I want to say Warrior doesn't get a crit bonus, which is really annoying. It's minor. A lot of classes get just innate crit bonuses when they promote. Like, I think Swordmaster has innate plus 10 crit, and Snipe has like innate plus 5 crit. And Warrior doesn't get that. I noticed that recently. And I understand why, because it's like, oh, it's not Berserker, a class that doesn't exist in this game. So I get why they don't have it, but it's still annoying, because that extra crit would help him out. Like, his skill is good, but it's not good enough to the point where he's going to be critting everything. Like, the Killer Axe is so just not reliable for getting good damage with Boyd. You want to just stick a poleaxe on him for the consistent damage. And I will say, once you can get him forged weapons that can help him out a bit, he is at the very least level 8, so he gains XP relatively quickly. Like, not super fast. He's lower level than a good amount of the mercs, actually. It's weird that he's, like, almost the same level as Mia. I will say that he's very much a growth unit in an army that has plenty of good base units. Or units that are defined by their bases. Like, I'm trying to think of other growth-based units in the Grail mercs. It's like Rolf, and that's it. Maybe Gatrie. Gatrie's bases are, like, better than Boyd's, though. Whereas Boyd is weird. Like, you'd think his bases would be better, and they're just simply not. He doesn't come with any skills to compensate for that. Like, axes are a good weapon, but his starting ones are just not very good. There's no pole axe. The hand axe is decent, but I'd prefer a short axe if I had the option. Stat caps aren't an issue for him at the very least, so if you get lucky enough with levels, he can turn into an absolute juggernaut. He'll be super tanky, and he will hit hard, and if you're lucky enough, he might be able to double something. Woo! My Nolan is already doubling things. Or my Titania is already 1 speed away from turning the entire battlefield into mush. Or my Jill, or my Ha. There's so many other units that are just Boyd but better. That's the problem. He is the fucking small fish in a big pond. In my mind, all of the axe units in this game are competing for Irvin in endgame. Because there's basically only one, like, super good axe in endgame, and that's Irvin. Or maybe Tarvo. Like, you could bring Nolan in and have him use Tarvos. Or like a Tomahawk or something. And, like, Boyd is fighting for his fucking life against all the other axe units. Ha is better. Jill is better. Titania's better. Nolan's better. That literally every axe unit. I guess he's better than Brom at the very least. Not even that much better than Brom, if I'm being perfectly honest. Like, Brom at least has... I'd say Brom's Part 2 performance is better than Boyd's early game Part 3 performance. I would say that. He has bond supports with Mist and his 2 bros, which is nice, but it doesn't help him that much. Like, hit's never an issue with him. Yeah, he has fire affinity. It can help him give him some damage. I believe Mist Boyd will result in, like, a +3 damage support, which is good. It does help him out a lot, but Boyd's he's an investment unit. In an army of units, in my opinion, which I guess isn't fair to compare it to other units when I should be reviewing the unit himself, he's a unit you need to invest in order to make good. You can give him a speed wing, but he won't be doubling right away, which sucks, because you want to give a speed wing to a unit who will get some immediate benefit out of that. And God forbid he ever fucking gets doubled by anything, which is completely possible. God fucking forbid. If he ever gets doubled by stuff, he's going to die. Because his base defense is like, I want to say 15, which is fine, but not good enough to the point where he's actually able to survive on enemy phase. If he sees a truck, like, filled with swordmasters running towards him, you know, trucks that run, that analogy made sense in my head, he will just die. You will see a big Boyd-shaped chalk outline in the battlefield. You can invest in him if you want, but I feel like... Okay, yeah, let me say this. Everybody shut up. There are basically 2 types of units in the Grail mercs. There are characters who don't need any investment, will just be good right out the bat, like Ike, Titania, Oscar, Shinon. And then there's the other half of the units you can invest in to make good. Don't start great. I'd say no unit in the Grail mercs starts terrible, outside of Mist, but Mist sucks. Rolf is one of these units. You can invest in Rolf and he will become much better, because his growths are good. You can invest in Mia, and she will become much better, even though she actually has a pretty good start. I'd say Mia's start is much better than Boyd's. You can invest in Gatrie and you become better, because they have good growths. These are units with good growths. And Boyd does have good growths, and he will become better, but I feel like the biggest problem with Boyd is that if he doesn't gain speed, he's only going to become so much better. A Boyd that doesn't double just isn't doing enough. And I'm not willing to take that 45% gamble on every single level to make him good. And just to make sure that you know I'm not biased, I did use Boyd on my last run. And he leveled speed so infrequently, he was legitimately getting doubled by units in Part 4. I used him in Part 4, I got him to Revert. I want to say he had like 23 speed upon promotion, which was embarrassingly low. He was getting doubled by almost everything. Not almost everything, but like he was getting doubled by a good amount of things, and he was doubling nothing. So his, like, admittedly good damage, because he got a boatload of strength at the very least. He dealt good damage, but the problem was he just wasn't doing it ×2, which you kind of need to do with a lot of characters. If Boyd's speed base or speed growth was a little bit better, he'd be a B tier unit for sure. Because, like, the rest of his stats are perfectly good, and his other growths are good. It's speed. That's the missing aspect. Speed's a very important stat in Radiant Dawn. I wish it was a little bit higher, to the point where it would either not get doubled by anything, or he was occasionally doubling things. Not to a point where I need to keep playing the fucking Boyd lottery to see if he levels speed again. Because if he don't level speed, he's gonna meet the bench. Boyd, C tier. And we're back. If you're wondering why Rolf is on the tier list already, it's because we had a little recording mishap, and I lost 40 minutes of footage. So if you're wondering why I sound exasperated and kind of bereft of any life or hope right now, it's because I talked about Rolf, Shinon, Mia, and Gatrie for 40 minutes, and then I realized that I wasn't recording, and now I want to fucking die. So, moving on, let's talk about Rolf, and we'll be talking about them pretty quickly, because I'm running out of enthusiasm tonight. Rolf! My favorite precious boy. I made a whole joke about him being an S tier, and that's going right in the fucking toilet. That's right, we're playing efficiently now. Rolf is a very simple D tier unit. He is plain and simple, just very, very mediocre. There really isn't a whole lot to talk about. His bases are okay for a level 1 sniper. 19 speed is, like, fine for a level... Like, let me just put it this way. These bases are, like, good for a level 1 sniper in the sense that if I had promoted a level, like, 18 or 19 archer into a sniper, these would be pretty good stats for that said character, but, like, in terms of actually having any use for the army, 19 speed just isn't enough to do anything meaningful. It's not enough to double anything at base, straight up. He will actually probably get doubled by Swordmasters at base, which is unfortunate. 20 skill is like, it's his only good stat of skill, and 17 strength is low, but let's talk about his fucking 75% strength growth. Any 75% strength growth gamers in the fucking chat? That's the most important part about Rolf, the part that all the Rolf apologists, aka me, will bring up anytime someone says Rolf is poopy butthole. Rolf has a 75% strength growth. Why does this matter? Because it's funny. Why does this small green-haired boy have a 75% strength growth? It comes from his short shorts. That's his secret power. You don't understand. Now, the rest of his growths are pretty, like, middling. Like, 45% skill, 45% speed is kind of like, whatever. 85% health is nice. It's reasonably high. He kind of has, like, weird fighter growths in a way, in that he's completely HP and strength oriented, but for the most part, like, it doesn't really matter. He'll level strength HP on basically every level, which is nice. With these middling stats and middling start, you'd understand why he's in D tier right away. Because he's just not very useful for the Ground Mercenaries right from the get-go. But it's not even just that why he belongs in D tier, in my opinion. It's not even in my opinion, it's just a, like, commonly accepted opinion at this point, is that Rolf is completely outclassed by another archer, not even an archer, another sniper in the Ground Mercenaries with Shinon. Now, I haven't talked about Shinon yet, but spoilers, he will be much higher than Rolf. Because Shinon, this is like an Edward Zahak situation, to a lesser extent, just because Sniper is a worse class than Swordmaster for the most part. But Shinon is just better than Rolf. Pretty much, in every single way. You know what, not even in pretty much every single way. In every single way. His stats are better, his growths are perfectly good. His weapon ranks are better, his affinity is better, he has the same availability, but that's the same with all the Grail Mercs. And he is just generally, he has a much, much better start than Rolf. And while you could definitely make the argument that Rolf will grow a bit better than Shinon and, like, outclass him in the long run, we're talking, like, long run, you know? Like, we're talking endgame levels of stats, where Rolf will have 2 points of strength higher than Shinon, and still have lower speed, probably, which is rather unfortunate. Like, Rolf is a unit that can get speed screwed, despite joining in a army that is, like, renowned for its bases. Like, Shinon basically can't get speed screwed because he has a base speed of, like, 24, meaning he will double most things upon his arrival. A feat which Rolf cannot say he is also capable of. And that's the biggest problem with Rolf. Although I will say this, I believe it is absolutely valuable to level an archer of your choice, be it Leonardo, be it Rolf, be it Shinon. It's probably going to be Shinon, because Shinon's the best one. But I do think it is absolutely valuable to level said archer, because of the existence of the double bow, which I believe I mentioned in a previous video. I don't know, I've recorded like fucking 7 million hours of footage, so who the fuck knows. But the double bow is a weapon you receive from just a random goober sniper for endgame 1, and I believe it makes it worth, like, it's good enough to the point where you can just bring a sniper into the tower and make them worth it. Because the double bow is an innate 1 to 3 range bow. Yes, 1 to 3 range, you heard that right. This thing can attack at 1 range. A bow that can actually attack at 1 range. Yes, it's a 1 to 3 range bow with really, really good stats as well. I want to say it has like 110 hit or something. And like 22 might? I think it's like 25 might. Oh yeah, no, it's not even 22 might. It's 25 might because it gives you +3 strength when you have it equipped. effectively meaning it has 25 might, which I want to say is like the highest might weapon in the game, other than like boss weapons. So that's obscene. And I think not bringing an archer in to use the double bow is kind of a waste. Now, Rolf uses this weapon perfectly fine, but the problem is Shinon's just going to use it better, and that's why Shinon is better. There is very little to talk about with Rolf, because he is... It's an Edward situation, but it's, like, even more apparent with Rolf than Shinon, because, like, you don't want to be using 2 archers. Whereas, with the Dawn Brigade, you can still find a use for Edward, even if you're just predominantly using Sahak, I find. But past the opening chapters of 3 Prologue and 3.1, where he is force deployed, and 3.2, where he's a free deployment slot, Rolf really just won't find much use in the army, because Shinon does just outclass him, much to my dismay. I fucking love Rolf. If, I probably haven't made this aware, or like, public knowledge, but Rolf is my favorite Tellius unit. I fucking love this greenhead boy. He is my favorite little tyke. I think he's neat. Even if he's absolute dumpster tier in Path of Radiance. Like, straight up the worst unit in the game in Path of Radiance. He's decent here. He's not, like, terrible. I've pretty much used him in every one of my runs, and he's always come out, at worst, okay. I've had runs where he doesn't double anything, but he's still hitting like a truck because of his obscenely high strength growth. Oh, give the child the 75% strength growth, it will be phony. Yeah, that's Rolf. He is very middling bases, okay-ish growths, no skills to speak of, not much utility. And while he can, like, do some okay fighting in the early chapters of the Grail Marks, he's just going to be quickly outclassed by Shinon. He's still good, though. He's still absolutely a good boy. And I will not tolerate any slander. No slander in the comments. If I see slander in the comments about Rolf, about my favorite green-haired little guy, I'll send you away. You will fall down the well with the incest developer. That well's pretty big. I can fit a lot of you fuckers down there. Anyway, Rolf, D tier. And next up, I feel like we should probably talk about him, because I've talked about Rolf for so long. Let's talk about Shinon! Shinon is a B tier unit, but he is a very, very good unit in B tier. Now, let's talk about what Shinon does well. And that's everything. No, it's not everything. But Shinon is a very, very, very strong unit indeed in Radiant Dawn. Shinon, I've talked about him and Mia, like, they are the golden gods of the Grail Mercs. They're not, like, perfect units, but they do have one key feature between them, and that they are the 2 units that actually do double basically everything upon their arrival. Because Shinon has obscenely high bases, disturbingly good. Literally all of Shinon's stats upon his arrival are fucking great. Like, even his lowest, like, offensive stat is 21 strength, which is still, like, pretty good. I got no complaints about 21 strength. It's a little low. It'll fall off a bit, but it's still perfectly good. But, like, 28 skill is close to cap on his, like, his introduction. Any character that starts with a stat basically capped is pretty alright in my book. And 24 speed is great. It's enough to double a good chunk of units. It's enough to double, like, fighters, or other warriors and halberdiers and generals. And I feel like this is also a point. This isn't rather, like, that important for why Shinon is a good unit, but I feel like people don't, like, discuss it enough. But Shinon starts with base 20 defense for some, like, obscure reason. Or actually, no, I do think I understand why Shinon starts with base 20 defense. It's because he starts with the skill Provoke, which, if you're unfamiliar, it literally just makes it so enemies are more likely to target him. Because he's constantly spewing racist garbage on the battlefield, and enemies like, hey, that's cool with the anti-Semitic remarks. Now, I think that's the reason why Shinon has such high, like, wow, his base health is 43, that's obscene. Like, he has an effective health of 63, with 20 defense and 43 health. So I think the developers anticipated you use him as sort of a way to lure enemies out so you can feed weaker units some kills. But the problem with this is that Shinon has no enemy phase to speak of, and this is one of his biggest weaknesses. Because he's an archer, so no innate 1-2 range until you get the double bow. So if you're using Shinon to lure enemies over, you're still going to have to go through a pretty arduous player phase to feed weaker units some kills. So giving a unit like Gatrie or Titania or even Ike Provoke is just a lot more effective. Do just take Provoke off of Shinon. Because Provoke isn't an inherently weak skill, it's just that, while it does fit his character perfectly, it isn't useful on him in the slightest, because he's a character with no enemy phase. Now, what else can you talk about with Shinon? Yeah, no, his bases are obscene, his growths are perfectly good. They're actually, yeah, they're good, in fact. Like, literally, no stat growth is terrible. Like, luck is annoyingly a little low, but his base is perfectly fine. 40% strength is a little bit low, but honestly, 21 strength is fine. And I find that Shinon starts with skill basically almost capped, so he will cap that very, very quickly, which means you can bonus XP abuse him and make it that much more likely that he will cap, or not cap strength, but gain strength upon getting bonus XP levels. Now, I will say, Shinon starts at level 13, which is reasonably high. It's high to the point where he basically won't gain very much XP from combat, but he'll still level at a reasonably, like, consistent pace, very similar to Titania. And being so high level means he's also, like, kind of likely to get to promotion before the end of part 3, even if you don't use him that much. Like, I find that even if I'm kind of passively using him like Titania, he'll still gain XP reasonably quickly. And I just feel like he's very, very strong. He's a very, very strong unit. Forgive me if there's lack of enthusiasm in my voice. I'm dying, both physically, mentally, and spiritually. That's 3 things. You can't have both with 3 things. Whatever, it's fine. What are the weak parts about Shinon? The weak parts about Shinon are he has no enemy phase to speak of because he is a sniper until he gets the double bow, which completely mitigates that, but that's exclusive to endgame, so we don't really talk about it that much. Bows aren't very good as a weapon type, unfortunately, because I think this doesn't really get talked about a little or that much, but other physical weapons like swords, lances, and axes have we'll just call it a great equivalent, like the great lance, the poleaxe, and the blade are heavier weapons that hit harder at the cost of hit. Now, bows do get a heavier weapon in the form of longbows, like the iron longbow, the steel longbow, the silver longbow. I couldn't tell you what their stats are because I never fucking use them because they're fucking garbage. They are longbows, meaning they have 2 to 3 range, which is rendered completely obsolete by the fact that marksman is a pretty good promotion that just gives you innate 2 to 3 range, which is rather nice. Also gives you the skill Deadeye, but as we talked about with promotional skills, they're really not that important. They're basically just an additional way to murder. They're basically just a way to point at an enemy and watch them fucking vanish. Watch them vanish into the death ether. Deadeye, you'll fall asleep forever. Them not getting a great weapon equivalent is rather unfortunate, so bows can fall a little behind in might. But thankfully you do have the double bow to make up for that, the Hubba Bubba double bow in endgame to make up for that, but beforehand he can struggle a little bit with might. He can also be a little bit crit dependent to deal damage in the early game because his weapon selection early on is a little bit unfortunate with just a killer bow and an iron bow, no silver bow to speak of, no silencer. So as that, but I will say his crit chance is like probably going to be one of the highest in the game due to his obscenely high skill and the killer bow, so it's not that bad. Honestly, I think Shinon is probably, I think Shinon is probably like one of the best player phase units in the game, which obviously isn't amazing in a predominantly enemy phase focused game, but it's still like he's very, very good just because his bases are that good. They're very good. Like 21 strength is great. 28 skill is phenomenal, 24 speed is enough to double most things, like I'd say 80% of enemies, maybe probably 90% of enemies, everything except for swordmasters. That's really good. Like this is how you make archers good. Literally all that's holding back Shinon is the lack of innate 1-2 range. That's it. Like if he had the double bow any earlier, he'd be fucking busted. In my opinion, this is how archers should be balanced, in that they become the gods of player phase by just effectively being able to just delete a unit by having such good stats, as opposed to just not having an enemy phase to speak of. Like, this is interesting. I'd almost make it just try and lean that into that more, because I feel like Incis is always trying to try different avenues, or like experimenting to balance archers correctly, because I feel like they're either too weak or they're fucking busted. There's no in between. Anyway, yeah, Shinon is very, very good. He is a very, very strong player phase unit. He's very, very bulky. I find that Shinon is just very, very difficult to kill. I find that I can just do some dumb positioning stuff with Shinon and never get punished for it. I'd almost put him in the, like, he isn't an S tier unit, obviously, but he does share a similar quality to Ike and Hart in that he's incredibly difficult to kill. Like, this dude is bulky. And yeah, just incredibly strong player phase unit, held back by a crappy class and a crappy weapon type, which is remedied once he gets access to the double bow. But that appears in endgame, so it isn't a cure-all to the situation. But definitely the strongest archer in the game, definitely the best candidate to bring into the tower, should you choose to use him in the tower, because the double bow is just that strong. And coming up next is Shinon's better half, it's Gatrie! I think Gatrie's a super underrated unit in Radiant Dawn. I'm going to place Gatrie in B tier. I think he's better than Micaiah for sure. I'm going to place him a little bit above Nephilim, although the two are pretty close. Gatrie, I've said this multiple times already, I really, really like Gatrie in Radiant Dawn. I don't think he gets enough credit. He's not like an amazing unit, he's not a perfect unit by any means, but one, I do think he's the best armored unit in the game, without any real competition, because Braum is kind of just average, and Titania, well, just, you know, he doesn't exist half the time. And Gatrie just has a lot of really, really good things going for him. But that, again, like I said, he's not a perfect unit, and he's definitely not without fault. But first of all, let's just go over what he does well. Gatrie has really good bases. And I'm not talking like kind of good bases in certain areas. I'd say like all of his base stats are actually really great. Like his starting bulk is fantastic, 44 health, 24 defense. Absolutely phenomenal. What is that? An effective health of 68? Gatrie's really fucking difficult to kill. He is one of those units, like, he's not an S tier unit in the sense that, oh, he does everything, but he is an S tier unit in the sense that he's like Ike and Hart in that he is very, very difficult to kill. Because his res is also, like, reasonably good, which means you can just stick him in a bunch of mages, and he'll probably be fine, because mages hit, like, fucking weak children. 25 strength is absolutely gargantuan for his joining time. I believe only Titania has higher. Base 20 speed is... always with the 20 speed. It's always 20 or 21 speed. That always, like, little annoying, tiny little niche area where it's like, my speed is just high enough to not get doubled by everything, but you'll never see ×2 next to my battle forecast. Ever, which is unfortunate. But 20 speed is nice for a general. He effectively has Wary Fighter in a weird way, in that, yes, he won't get doubled by anything, but he probably won't double anything. These bases are all really good. I think maybe his only, like, kind of iffy one is skill at 18. 18 skill can be a little bit low, but it's not, like, a massive issue. And to accompany these really good bases, a really, really solid growth rate. I wouldn't even say solid. I would maybe go so far as to say, like, Gatrie has... I'd say Gatrie's almost tied with Edward in having some of the best growths in the entire game. Like, they're not, again, not perfect, but having a 60% strength growth in 3 areas, and all 3 of those being money stats, like strength, speed, defense, is phenomenal. That's really, really good. Because it means, one, it means you're going to be leveling up very, very nicely on average. You'll be getting strength, speed, defense on average on your levels. These are the good stats, these are the ones you want points in, because these are the stats that do the most on average. And it also means that he's most likely to cap these pretty quickly. Like, I want to say his speed cap is like 24 or something like that. That is one of the bad parts, but we'll get to that in a sec. But, like, he's relatively likely to cap stats somewhat quickly, which means you can boost up his lower ones if you want. Or you can just not bonus XP abuse him and just give him bonus XP anyway, because he's likely to get strength, speed, defense anyway. And if I gave someone a bonus XP level and they got strength, speed, defense as a general, I'd be pretty happy with that. Other than that, he doesn't have that much unique about him, so to say. He's a pretty good combat unit. His bulk is definitely helpful with the Grail Mercs. Like, I feel like him and Ike are pretty much the only 2 units who are virtually, or I guess Shinon as well. Him, Ike, and Shinon are virtually incapable of dying in the early chapters. And I want to say his bulk also just carries over really, really nicely into Part 4. I didn't use Gatrie, like, predominantly. Like I said with Shinon and Titania, I kind of just passively used them. And it was the same with Gatrie. I didn't really, like, heavily feed him XP or heavily use him to, like, take out a bunch of units. So, like, oh, I'm going to stick you here on enemy phase and you'll tank, like, 8 units and get a bunch of XP. I didn't really do that. But I did use him for this, like, the reason of, in most of the early Grail Merc chapters, they really do just want you to use as many Grail Mercs as possible. And he's a good unit, so why not use him? Now, I want to say I gave him, like, maybe 3-4 levels in total before I transitioned into Part 4. And I will say, like, having gained probably, like, 2 strength, 2 speed, 3 defense, maybe not even that, probably less, to be honest. Gatrie transitioned into Part 4 pretty nicely with just having mostly, like, competent stats. I stuck him in the Hawk army and he was doing relatively well despite basically being at base. Like, his speed was high enough to the point where he wasn't getting doubled by that much, and his defense was high enough to the point where he wasn't taking that much damage. Like, I used him specifically on 4-2, where the reinforcements on that chapter can get really, really fucking obnoxious. Fuck that chap. 4-2's the worst. I think I've said this multiple times already. Future me, if I've already said it a million times, just cut it out. It's fine. I have multiple future and multiple different dimension versions of me. My editing prowess knows no bounds. I'm 5-dimensional. Part 4, for the most part, is garbage and the worst part of Radiant Dawn in general. Because I want to say, how many good chapters are in Part 4? There's 4P. That chapter's okay. I'm not a huge fan of it. 4-1. I think that's actually a fun chapter. I think 4-1's the only chapter I actually like. 4-2 sucks because the reinforcements are really obnoxious, and it's basically, that map's basically a corridor. Like, you just have to go down, like, the, like, allotted path that the game has set for you. There's very little freedom in that map, it's really boring. And then 4-3 sucks absolute dick. And then there's 4-4, which is, like, the worst chapter in the game, because they just thought, you know, what if we, like, gave the enemy, like, 20 units and reinforcements a turn? Wouldn't that be interesting? Wouldn't that be fucking fascinating? That chapter is the biggest slog in the entire game. And then 4-5 is, like, 4-5 is a case of, if you want it to be a good XP grinding chapter, you can use it as such. But if you don't, you can just one-turn it. So 4-5 isn't that bad. Regardless, back to the topic at hand, before I fucking went on a random tangent. Gatrie is just a pretty solid all-round unit. I will say, like, his movement, obviously, he is stuck on General. As I've mentioned before, General is not the worst class in the game in Radiant Dawn, as it is in a lot of other Fire Emblems. It's pretty okay here. It's not great. There are definitely better classes. If Gatrie was something like a Halberdier, I'd definitely prefer it, just because Halberdier's caps are better. And they have that 1 extra point of move, which does make a difference, especially in a lot of the Grail Merc chapters where you do want to be moving pretty quickly. Gatrie can definitely fall behind, which is annoying. But there are also a good amount of defensive chapters, like there's 3-5, is it 3-5? Yeah, 3-5, the defensive chapter where you get Rayson. Gatrie's great on that chapter. He can hold the line really, really well. 3-8's not a chapter where you go particularly fast. I find he's pretty good there. But also that map is questionable in the quality department, so whatever. And yeah, I find there's still a fair amount of maps where Gatrie can be good. Obviously, he's not the strongest. He can fall behind in movement. He doesn't come with any particular skills. His affinity isn't anything amazing. He falls behind, or he can fall behind at the very least. There are many opportunities for him to fall behind. I wouldn't say he falls behind in stats, like ever. I'd say his bases are good enough to the point where he can still be useful in Part 4 even if you don't train him. Which is great. That alone makes him a pretty good unit in my eyes. Because in Part 4, if you haven't been like divvying up your XP effectively, you're going to be relying on units like Icon, Lyre, and Tebon to basically carry you through those chapters. So I think having units like Gatrie and Titania and Shinon and Oscar, even at base, they can do some work. Like, not much, but they can just still be helpful. Which is nice. I think that's definitely worthy of merit, and definitely worthy of mentioning. The worst part about Gatrie is Marshall. And I didn't realize this until looking over Marshall's stat caps until very recently. Because, as I said with characters like Laura, Gatrie does have really good growths, but I'll say Lance General has pretty okay caps, but once you get to Marshall, you really start to see, like, the blemishes in cap design, so to say. Because Marshall has really crappy stat caps. I want to say Marshall's speed cap is like 30, which is just downright awful. Like, what? Why does Marshall have a speed cap of 30? That's so low. Most of the generals, like literally I think every single armored unit in this game, what is that? It's Meg, Tyranio, Brom, and Gatrie. I think Brom has the lowest speed growth at like 40% or something, which isn't even that slow. And like his base speed is fine. Like, Tyranio has a good speed growth, Meg has a good speed growth, Gatrie has a good speed growth. Like, why is their speed cap so low? It's kind of jarring. But anyway, this can really screw him over in the long run. If you, like, plan on bringing him into the tower, this can screw over his endgame potential because he won't be doubling anything. Which is somewhat frustrating, but it's not the end of the world, so to say. I think I should establish this. Just because you're not bringing a unit into the tower doesn't mean the unit is bad. A lot of people like to really like latch onto the, I have to bring them into the tower, I've been using them all game. You can, obviously, because the unit is your favorite, but don't feel like you have to bring the unit into the tower just because you like the unit or you think the unit is good. Because if you want to play optimally, you should be bringing every single Laguz roll into the tower, which obviously is fucking boring, and I don't recommend you do that. I fucking hate the Laguz rolls in gameplay. But like, just because I wouldn't bring Gatrie into the tower, for 5 chapters, literally just 5 chapters, and like, most of them are super easy, like, 4 endgame 2 is easy and short, 4 endgame 4 is piss easy, 4 endgame 3 can be a little bit tricky, 4 endgame 1 can be kind of tricky, and then the final chapter is like whatever. It's kind of difficult, but it's also like pretty straightforward for the most part. It's basically just like performing maintenance. I just have to like extract these specific screws and bolts around the goddess of like order and harmony before I can smack her with a big sword. But yeah, I think the point I'm trying to make is, while Gatrie isn't a unit I would probably bring into the tower on average, he's still a very good unit in the sense that his bases are great, he will grow nicely if you do decide to invest in him, and the only thing really holding him back is a crappy class, and maybe a lack of useful skills. Off the top of my head, outside of like the obvious suspects of like Adept, which he can make decent, like fucking everyone makes good use of Adept, man. It's like saying, well, this unit can make good use of a gun. Well, yeah, fucking every unit would make good use of a gun. It's a gun, it kills people. I enjoy killing people with my units, it's pretty valuable. But like, Resolve would be okay on here. Like, outside of the usual suspects, there's really no skills where it's like Titania, I talked about Titania, I think Titania makes good use of a skill like Imbue because her base magic is quite high and her health isn't that high, so she would actually make good use of that regeneration every turn. And that's like a kind of a niche thing that few units can do, so Titania is one of those units that would make good use of that specific skill. And like, off the top of my head, Gatrie, like Provoke is pretty good on him. I like just taking Provoke off of Shinon and slapping it on Gatrie, but it's not like a must-have. It's not something that turns him from a terrible unit into a great unit. He's just good. He's kind of like Oscar in a lot of ways. He's just a plain and simple good stat bot. He's like almost a stack check for the enemy. He's in a weird way, he's like an enemy unit in that he's kind of a stat check. A lot of enemies are like, do you have X amount of speed? No, you don't double me then, so I'm gonna slow you down. Or like, do you have this amount of effective weapons on you? Or do you have this much strength? Blank, 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 blank. Gatrie's kind of like that, but for enemies. In a very strange way. Pretty much the only thing really holding him back is his kind of iffy class. Again, if this dude was a halberdier, if he decided to shave some of the pauldrons and like greaves off, he'd probably become a lot better. Halberdier is just a generally better class because of better caps. So yeah, Gatrie, just make sure to take some of that armor off for the secret third Tellius game. and he'll be much better. But honestly, I'm pretty happy with Gatrie. I don't think he gets nearly as much acclaim as he should. He's very, very solid. He's not the best unit in the game, but I like him a lot. Definitely the best armored unit in the game, for sure. And moving on to the final Grail Merc. Good lord, this took a long time. It's Mia! The character I have been not ranting and raving, I've been gushing and gooping about. I'm glooping, I'm guzzling the goop with Mia. I'm not cutting that. Mia's a unit I like to hype up a lot, and I've actually been doing a lot of thinking up to this point of where she actually goes, because I'm not entirely sure she's quite as good as I make her out to be. I think for now I'm going to place her at the top of B tier, but I do think she has potential to be an A tier unit. Mia is very good. Mia is a very, very strong unit indeed. And originally I was planning on putting her in A tier, probably above some of the like pretty strong units, maybe like even above Zahak, because I do think Mia is one of the most improved units from Path of Radiance into Radiant Dawn for a variety of different reasons. Let's go over them, shall we? Number 1, Mia's base speed is 28. This is obscene. 28 speed is enough to double every single enemy in Part 3, maybe outside of late game Swordmasters. This means Mia is always doubling, and this is great. Now, I like to almost fetishize like high speed in Radiant Dawn a little bit. I have been maybe over-exaggerating just how important it is, but it is always nice to have units that do twice the damage. It's literally just as simple as that half the time. It's instead of doing 5 damage, I do 10 damage, because I did 5 times 2, and that is nice. You might think, well, when I use Mia, she's doubling everything, but you're doing 3 times 2, and this isn't helpful. There are a million ways to mitigate the fact that Mia's base strength is quite low at, I think, 18, which is admittedly quite low. But it's not that low. It's not, like, uncomfortably low. And I will say, there's just a million ways to mitigate the fact that our biggest issue is low starting strength, and maybe iffy bulk, but we'll get to that in a sec. Number 1, you can mitigate this by just giving her better weapons. You can just forge a steel sword, or give her a steel blade. Her skill is definitely high enough for her to use a steel blade, and this will help her a lot. It's literally as simple as that half the time. I don't even think you need to give her like an energy drop or anything. You don't need to do that. Don't give Mia an energy drop. That's such a waste. There are millions of kids in Galia who would need that energy drop to survive. Give it to them instead. Number 2, give Mia Adept as soon as fucking possible. I did not realize just how good Adept on Mia was until I tried using it. I was always an avid believer. It was like, oh, I need to give Soren the Adept. He needs the extra help in combat. Oh, you can look, he's doubling now. He has a fucking 15.5% chance to double or whatever, and do moderately okay damage. Slap that shit on Mia as soon as possible. Yank that shit off of Soren's branded ass tattoo and give it to my best purple haired armpit waifu. Fuck, I just realized I talked about armpits with Mia. That means I just lost the bet. Unrelated, but I'm not talking about that. Adept, as we mentioned earlier with one of the billion other characters, Adept is a speed percent chance to just add an additional attack to your combat. Now, since Mia has a 28 base speed and will be leveling speed very, very quickly because her speed growth is very high, and on average she will be getting HP, speed, skill, defense, or levels like that, like your traditional Myrmidon levels, it means her chance to effectively turn a ×2 into a ×3 will only improve. You wouldn't think that having that ×3 would be as valuable as it is, but due to the way that Swordmasters deal damage in this game, it's actually very, very good. Doing something with a steel blade or even a killing edge, just adding that additional chance to get a crit is really, really valuable. It can really, really up Mia's potential damage output. It's absolutely phenomenal. And if we move on to Mia's growths, they're also pretty solid around the board. Instead of being specifically offense oriented like Edward, or more speed and skill oriented like Zahak, she's more of an all-rounder. Her strength growth is 45%, which is just high enough for me to be okay with it. I'd obviously prefer it if it was higher. It should be fucking 400%, but 45% is fine. 65 speed and 60 skill are both perfectly good. Even 40%, wow, 40% defense? Jesus, that's really high for a Myrmidon. And 70% health means she's going to be getting pretty good levels. She's also a great candidate for bonus experience because she will be capping speed and skill very, very quickly. And then you can just slap bonus experience onto her and get HP, strength, defense for a level, and Mia starts getting even better because if Mia's bulky, it means you can leave her on the front lines, which is actually really, really nice. She even has a fire support. I just realized her affinity is fire, which means you can just pair her up with another fire to give her even more potential damage output. There's a million ways to make Mia's damage output even better. This isn't me trying to fucking fumble on my papers and try and go through 8 different mental gymnastics just to try and portray Mia as a good unit. There's so many one-step processes of just give her a steel blade or just give her a double fire support to make this unit great. It's so easy. A lot of the other sword units in this game are just so agonizing to make good. It can be really difficult to make Makalov good, or you need to invest into Edward really hard, or you need to click on Zahak and then point him at the enemy unit to make him kill something. That's so difficult. Like, Mia is actually, she's so easy to make good. She will grow nicely. She's a very, like, reasonably low level. I think she's level 6, which means she gains XP pretty quickly. And you, like, in general, if you want to be XP efficient, you will generally be feeding kills to weaker units. Obviously, if you don't care about this, you're just going to be using Ike and Titania to murder everything. But one, that's boring, and I don't want to do that. And two, I don't know, I like seeing the XP bar fill up. Now, if you want to do that, you'll be feeding kills to units like Mist or Rolf, who have trouble killing things because their stats aren't very good. Or you can feed that to units like Boyd, which I won't, or Mia. I just want to point out, actually, this is important. I found another way to shit on Boyd. Boyd and Mia start within like 2 levels of each other. I think Boyd's level 8 and Mia is level 6. Boyd has 18 speed at base. By the way, again, fucking pitiful. He should be ashamed. Mia has 28 fucking speed. There is a 10 speed differential between these two units. What is the strength differential? It's like 4 points or something? Like, I think Mia has 18 strength and Boyd has 22. That's obscene. I get there's weapon might differences as well, but like, Jesus. Like, they were not making units evenly at Insys that day. Somebody really had it out for the green-haired special boy from Path of Radiance. I love Boyd in Path of Radiance, but he's not good in Radiant Dawn. Yeah, there's just a lot of ways to make Mia good. She levels quite nicely, her growths are good, her bases are very, very good in speed and skill, and like okay everywhere else. They're okay enough to the point where I'm very comfortable using her. She's a great user of Alondite, which you will get on the tower. There's tons of like, there's the Vague Carti, which you can use great, because its might is obscenely high. There's Alondite, which is obviously just a carbon copy of Ragnar, which she uses very nicely. Like, she is just a good user of swords. Swords get a lot better in the late game just because there are a lot of better options. Like, the Tempest Blade is still a good sword, even if its accuracy is garbage. Like, Mia's skill is so obscenely high that it kind of doesn't matter. She's maybe even quick enough to dodge tank. Probably not, like, efficiently, but potentially? It's definitely an option available to her. Obviously not the best, but it's something. Now, why isn't a unit I have been, like, completely gushing about and complimenting at every single possible opportunity in A tier, or potentially even an S tier? Mr. YouTuber man, she must be a perfect unit. No, she's not a perfect unit. Mia, as good as I think she is in many different areas, all of these areas are basically luck dependent. Like, her bases aren't amazing to the point where I think she can do amazing work in Part 4. If you bring a base Mia into Part 4, she won't do anything. She'll do 0 damage, because most of the enemies have really, really high defense. Whereas units like Gatrie and Shinon and Oscar can at the very least do that. Now, I think Mia, out of the other Grail Mercs in B tier, I think she grows the best, maybe outside of Shinon, but Shinon will have a better end game because the double bow is obscene. But like, he's also an archer, so he has no enemy phase. But yeah, a lot of things with Mia is just a case of, well, she can get screwed in this area, or I slapped Adept on her, she's just not proccing it, because guess what? It's a percent chance to proc it. There's a good chance you just might not proc it. Growths have been crappy. She hasn't been getting strength at all. She's getting speed screwed somehow, even though she has a 65% speed growth. That's not 100%, it's not guaranteed. She can get stat screwed, and that would absolutely suck. She needs crits to do damage a lot of the time, and again, it's like, the problem with Mia is that she is percentage chance stacked on percentage chance, stacked on percentage chance. It's like a million fucking Excel spreadsheets here in order to get Mia going. And I feel like you basically need to roll, not even like super high on Mia to get her going. Imagine I have a 10-sided die, and I need to roll like, let's say a 4 or higher 3 times in a row in order to kill a unit with Mia and get a good level. Now, the chances of that are above average, but it's not like guaranteed. And just missing one of them, like, I need to roll 4 or higher to get a crit, I need to roll 4 or higher to get an Adept proc, and then I need to roll 4 or higher to get a good level. Like, it's very easy to miss one of those, and if you miss one of them, Mia isn't that great. Like, oh, I got the Adept proc, but I didn't get the crit, so I didn't kill the guy. Or, oh, I got the Adept in the crit, but she got a crappy level. Oh, I got the crit, but I didn't get the Adept proc. And like, she can falter in that area. This does get a bit better in the late game, because just having higher damage, or like higher might swords can mitigate a lot of these issues. Like, she won't have to rely on crits towards endgame. And she has access to Astra, which is actually quite good in this game, because it's basically just a ×5 crit, and that's very valuable. And she doesn't actually suffer from caps at all. I want to say True Blade caps are pretty good in this game. Like, strength cap can be a little low, I think it's like 33 or something like that, which is a little bit iffy. Or like a speed cap is 40, which is absolutely phenomenal. No complaints there. And yeah, no, I think I've said all I need to say about Mia. She can just be very luck dependent a lot of the time, but I think she's just very, very solid. Swords, while kind of iffy as a weapon type, don't really suffer in the late game. She can grow very nicely. Her bases aren't a problem like certain other characters that rhyme with Moid. She can be very, very luck dependent, but I think she can perform well enough in mid-late game, and I do think she is just worthy of an investment. I think, like, if you choose to invest in a Swordmaster... Oh, I have to bring up fucking Edward again. I'm so sick of talking about Edward. Obviously, if you invest, like... If you try to get every single Swordmaster to a level 1 True Blade, chances are Edward will be the strongest, but he also requires the most investment. I feel like Mia requires the least investment of all the Swordmasters to get to True Blade, just as the level is reasonably high and their availability is, like, arguably the best. Like, who else is, like, competing for that XP for the most part? Boyd? You gonna use Boyd? Yeah, Boyd's alright. I shit on Boyd a lot, but he is, like, still fine. For the most, like, Titania doesn't gain XP at all. Shinon gains very little XP. Rolf and Mist aren't very good, as much as I love my green-haired little tyke. Ike will be gaining XP pretty slowly. Gatrie will be gaining XP. Like, there just isn't much competition. I feel like Mia's just in that sweet spot where she is the best unit to just feed kills to a lot of the time. And yes, she will require a bit of babying at first. There's plenty of other good units who require babying at first. Fucking Jill requires some babying at first. Yes, she grows out of control and is the best snowball unit in the game, but she does still require babying. Anyway, yeah, Mia, B tier unit. Maybe a little bit high, but I have personal bias, and it's my list, so if you want it to be lower, make your own list! We're finally done with the Grail Mercenaries. Okay, who do we have up next? Oh, it's Blue Naruto, otherwise known as Ranulf. Am I alone in thinking that Ranulf always kind of looked like Naruto? Maybe I'm just like a filthy weeaboo. But I don't know, I just see that boy and I think, Data Bayo. Ranulf. I think Ranulf is a pretty decent unit in Radiant Dawn, especially compared to his Path of Radiance version, where he's kind of like just a nothing burger, to be honest. I don't even remember what his performance is. I just remember it being middling to really forgettable. You get him so late in Path of Radiance. Anyway, in Radiant Dawn, I would say Ranulf is like a high C tier unit. I don't think he's quite a B tier unit. I'm going to place him in between Boyd and Soren. But I think he is a pretty decent unit, all things considered, because Ranulf has to put up with a lot of shit, and he's still a decent unit despite said shitty things. For starters, I don't think I'm comfortable putting a generic Laguz in B tier if they're not named Janaff or Ulki. I'll just say that right away. But let's start with what Ranulf does well right from the get-go. Ranulf has pretty good bases, especially for Laguz as well. Remember, with Laguz, it's very easy to go from, oh my god, this unit's stats are terrible, to, oh, this unit's stats are really good, because of how doubling stats work. Like, if I see 11 strength on an untransformed Laguz, I think, holy fuck, they're gonna have 22 strength when they transform. That's fucking nothing. As opposed to, if they have 14 strength, like Ranulf does, it's like, wow, 28 strength, that's pretty good. Like, because it's not a difference of 3 strength, it's a difference of 6 strength. That's why stats on Laguz are so important. I believe I said in part 1, it's like, oh, I don't know why Laguz has, like, why do Laguz have such low growth? And the answer is, past me, you fucking dipshit, it's because a point in strength, or speed, or skill, or defense, or any of the money stats for Laguz is basically 2 stats. That's why they don't give them such good growth rates. Because if they did have good growth rates, and they were getting, like, 4 or 5 stat level ups, they'd probably be fucking broken. Or they wouldn't be broken because they're gaining, like, no XP, but at the very least, they would be much better. I don't know. Laguz are such a fucking nightmare to balance. I do not envy them. Either way, yeah, Ranulf has very, very solid bases. He has 30 speed at base, which is enough to double basically everything upon his joining chapter in 3-4. He is moderately useful in that chapter. He does good amounts of damage. He doesn't, like, one round everything like a Laguz Royal might do, but he's still doing pretty good damage for the most part. He'll one round, like, mages and swordmasters, maybe fighters. But tougher units like halberdiers and generals, he can deal like a good chunk of damage. He can maybe soften them up for some kills if you want to level roll for Mist or any of the other forbidden units. And that is very helpful. And also, he does have 9 move. I'm never going to say no to a 9 move unit. 9 move is always wonderful. He is level 26, which means he will be gaining the fascinating experience of 1 point at a time. You know, it's going to take 100 instances of combat to give him a level in which he will probably gain HP, speed, luck, and nothing will change, which is unfortunate. And his growths aren't anything to really write home about either. He has Laguz growth. They're all mostly below 40% because that's how you balance Laguz for the most part, because you can't give them too good growths. These filthy subhumans have to stay below this line, otherwise they will take over the continent. They're too dominant. Shut them down. Yes, while Ranulf has a pretty good start in 3-4 and like okay availability, he leaves for 3-5 and then you get him back in 3-7, and he is force deployed. I guess I should mention that, along with Ike and Sigrun later in the part. He is force deployed, which means he's in that niche of, I always consider force deployed units as a unit you should basically always be using for the most part, because I feel like it's just such a waste to bring a unit and then not use them at all. You don't even have to use them much, you can just use them to shove and stuff, and that is still helpful. Like, he has a high weight once he's transformed. I believe he can shove basically every single Bjork unit once he's transformed, which is legitimately helpful. Hell, you could give him Smite from Mordecai and just make him a Smite bot. That's helpful. That is good, but I need to get into the big glaring problem with Ranulf, and that is the fact that he has to deal with being a Laguz. It ain't easy being a Laguz that doesn't have Form Shift equipped. Ranulf has to deal with the Laguz gauge. He has to. He's not a Laguz Royal, so he has to deal with that. Has to get it up to 30. He has to take his Viagra so his fucking gauge can become as erect as possible, then transform and watch it get limp very, very quickly. I've mentioned this a million times. It's the problem with every non-royal Laguz. Half the time, Ranulf isn't doing anything. Yes, you can just shove him out on enemy phase and maybe he'll do like a little bit of damage. I'd say he's tanky enough and fast enough to the point where he probably won't get like one-rounded untransformed, but you probably shouldn't be doing that anyway. It'll give him good XP and good gauge, but it's so gimmicky, I wouldn't recommend it. Olive Grass can obviously help with this. There are a decent amount of Laguz stones you can use, but at the end of the day, he is going to have to deal with that gauge at some point, and it sucks. Also, in addition to this, he is a cat Laguz, which is unfortunately the weakest form of Laguz. Because of spoilers, cats just don't do anything that a tiger basically wouldn't do already. Like, you could argue that tiger has worse speed. I guess in this instance, Ranulf is kind of the outlier in that, yes, he is fast enough to double basically everything, whereas units like Lyre and Leith will have trouble doubling things because their speed is so average, or in Lyre's case, bad. We'll get to her. Spoiler, she's fucking next. Can't wait for that one. Can't wait for this 20-minute, like, roast of Lyre, where I say she's bad in, like, 3 different ways over 20 minutes. Cat Laguz is almost undoubtedly the weakest class in the game. There's no 1-2 range. You could give him something like Quick Claw, but it's so fucking gimmicky that I just wouldn't recommend it. It's unfortunate, because there's basically very few ways to fix Ranulf's problems. Outside of Laguz gems in, like, part 4, which allows him to stay perpetually transformed as soon as you use it, it's basically just a Laguz stone plus, if you will, which does help a lot, but it's not until, I believe the first one you can get is in 4.3, the Desert chapter, so you can't even use it until 4.5. And by the time you get there, it's like there are better recipients. It's just a big, like a big miasma for how to fix Ranulf's problems. Because for a lot of them, you just flat out can't fix them. His middling growths can't really be fixed. His incredibly slow XP gain can't really be fixed. His lack of 1-2 range can't really be fixed outside of some gimmicky, shitty Quick Claw builds. It's so bad, don't even bother. That's a big issue I have with a lot of Laguz in this game, is like, you can give them stuff like Adept and Vantage and just traditionally good skills, but I feel like almost all of the Laguz exclusive skills are just flat out fucking garbage. Like, they're just bad. Like, Quick Claw is awful. Howl is awful. Maelstrom's a little bit better than Quick Claw, but it's still fucking awful. And it's really, really rough. In fact, I think the only good Laguz exclusive skills are Satori Sign skills, which thankfully, you know, they should be, and Ulki and Janaff's personal skills. The best personal skills. But yeah, I think Ranulf is just a... Oh my god, he only starts with A rank and strike? I thought he started with S rank! Ooh! Ranulf doesn't start with S rank and strikes? Oh, that's so rough. Why? He's like the lieutenant to the Gallian army. He's like a big high up. Why wouldn't he start with S rank? This dude's going toe-to-toe with Well, he's not going toe-to-toe with Zelgis, but he's fighting him. He wouldn't have S rank strikes? That's so stupid. It means he has the same strike rank as fucking Lyre. Why? He wouldn't even be busted if you gave him S rank strikes. Wow, that sucks. I'm gonna leave him where he is for now, but he might go down a bit. Man, just give him S rank strikes. I think he'd be much better. That'd be a really nice way to fix him, honestly. It would fit his character. I don't think it'd make him completely broken or anything. Like, the way his availability is, he just isn't around a good amount of the time. While he is force deployed, he doesn't accomplish a lot on a fair amount of maps. I feel like he's good on 3-4, I think, just because you're constantly moving forward, and like I feel like on 3-4 there's like big periods of just dead, like empty time where you're not really doing anything. So I feel like you can just Olive Grass in between then, and you can use him reasonably well. Like, he feels like a good unit to just go, hey, go up on those ledges and bink those mages into the next dimension. But overall, I do think Ranulf, he's a cat Laguz. Cat Laguz suck. It's really, it's unfortunately it's the unfortunate truth. He's a good unit despite all of his shortcomings, which is impressive. I'll give him that. And being force deployed helps, and he can be useful in part 4 even at base, which is helpful. But at the end of the day, he's a one-range cat Laguz, and this just isn't good enough. Like, there are just better Laguz. Tigers are better. Hawks are way better. Even Ravens are better. Lions are better. I think literally every other form of Laguz is better. Yeah, no, CTF. He's a good Laguz. He's a good guy, but he isn't quite B tier in my opinion, just because of the many shortcomings of Laguz. Oh, here she is. I've been waiting a fucking millennia to talk about her. It's Lyre! Oh, Lyre. I couldn't be a liar with you. You're fucking hot garbage and you're going in F tier. I don't think anyone's gonna fucking disagree with that opinion in the slightest. Lyre is the worst unit in the game. Bar none. I don't care what you say. Meg is not worse than Lyre. Fiona is not worse than Lyre. Astrid is not worse than Lyre. Why the fuck is Fiona above Astrid? Astrid is better than Fiona. What do I even talk about with Lyre? Like, she's so fucking bad. There is nothing good about this unit. Every other unit in F tier, at the very least, has some redeeming feature, I think. Meg at least has good availability, and she's kind of funny to use. Fiona has the best affinity in the game and can, like, do Kanto Savior shenanigans, potentially. Like, she can at the very least have some utility in some way. Like, yes, her combat is irredeemable trash, but she has something. It's not good, but it's something. And Astrid is, at the very least, promoted and has Paragon. She has something at the very... Like, what the fuck does Lyre have? She's a 9-move cat. Everything I said about Ranulf, like, every single weakness that I just said about Ranulf applies to Lyre, but take away every good thing that I said about Ranulf. Lyre, I'm gonna look at her base. I'm really scared to look at her base stats because I feel like they're gonna. I'm just gonna, you know, let's play the game show. Guess Lyre's stats. I'm gonna guess she has like 9 base strength. I think she's like really similar to Leth, but like her speed is like considerably low. I think she has like effectively 4 less points of speed. Like I'm gonna guess 11 strength, 12 speed, like 10 skill. I think I know her skill is low. I think like 9 skill and her defenses or whatever. All right, I'm gonna go check. Oh my fucking god, she starts with base 7 strength. Are you fucking kidding? This unit starts with base 7 strength! What the fuck were you cooking in that kitchen, sis? Base 7 strength. She has base 14 strength. Her fucking base strength is lower than Valug's at base when half shifted. Oh my fucking god. Why? She's not even force deployed. That's another thing. Like, I'll talk about it a lot with some units. Like, I talked about how Ranulf's like, oh, he's a free deployment slot, so at least you get to use him. Lyre isn't force deployed on any chapters outside of 3.1 where she's a yellow unit. And the most remarkable thing she does in that chapter is fucking die when the reinforcements come. Oh my god, 11 speed as well. I thought that speed was higher. Oh my god. 11 speed? That's it. So 22. Base 22 speed. That's like, not even good. That's not even enough to double, like, everything. At the very... Oh my fucking god, 14 speed. 14 strength! And she's a cat Laguz, so her base weapon... There's no way she has S rank in strike. Yeah, A rank. I'm surprised she doesn't have fucking D rank in strikes. Yeah, my cat claw has 2 might at base. And 60 hit. Fucking hell. What is that? 14 strength, I think cat claw A rank strikes is like 8 might? Maybe 9? So she has... Oh my god, that's 23 base damage. That's nothing! I want to say she does 0 damage to generals. That's... genuinely impressive. I don't even think she doubles generals. Holy fuck, this unit's awful. And yes, every single bad thing I said about Ranulf, 1 range, has to deal with the Laguz gauge half the time, grows relatively slowly because of reduced XP gain. That all applies to Lyre. What are her growth rates? Maybe they're really good. Oh wow, okay. I will actually admit, 70% speed growth and 65% skill growth is actually really good for a Laguz unit. It's not enough to salvage her, but at the very least, if you do put a bunch of XP onto her, she will grow surprisingly nicely. 35%. Yeah, these growths aren't actually too bad for a Laguz. That's kind of surprising. These growths are better than Marcia's. That's kind of fucked. She's an S, you guys. You just have to invest in her. Don't do that. Don't put any XP into this unit. Her base speed is like lower than every other Bjork unit in your army. You get her at the same time as Leth, who is also a bad unit but has higher base speed. Like, I want to say every single stat here is lower than Leth's. Her defenses definitely are. Her strength definitely is. Her speed definitely is. Maybe her skill? Like, oh my god. It's so fucking bad. And she's a resource hog. Like, you need to just dump all of... She doesn't even join with Olivigrass, for fuck's sake. She just joins with that, like, pockets empty and it's like, ooh, don't I look daunting? Ooh. That's what Lyre sounds like. That's my cannon. My head cannon. Don't use this unit. There's literally no redeeming feature. She joins with no skills. Her affinity is Thunder, which isn't that helpful. Like, she's not even an Earth support, so you can't even do some shenanigans there. She's not force deployed, meaning you have to, like, you have to undeploy one of your good units if you want to use this unit. She's not even force deployed for a single chapter. A lot of units are force deployed, and that makes them a bit better in my eyes, because it's like, alright, you get a free trial in the army, basically. Like, Ranulf has a much better first impression because I am forced to use him. If he wasn't force deployed, I probably wouldn't think of him as a good unit. But, like, Lyre is just so atrocious. In a game where you have plenty of 9-move delete buttons, you have Lyre, who's a 9-move wait button, or a 9-move hear the tink sound effect twice button. Twice if you're lucky! It's most of the time just once. There is literally no good thing about this unit. She is 1, massive resource hog, 2, stuck at 1 range permanently, 3, reduced XP gain, 4, fucking horrendous bases, 5, useless affinity, 6, does not join with any skills, 7, needs to grind strike rank to do damage, like, fucking 12, X, Pi, who fucking know, I lost count. I literally lost count! when talking about bad things with this fucking unit. My brain doesn't work anymore. Lyre is affecting my, like, my mental space. She's invading my brain. The worms are back! Oh my god, don't use this unit. I can only say it in so many ways. Just don't use her. She is a waste of fucking resources. She's a waste of my space. She actively makes the game worse in my presence. Don't fucking start with me, Lyre fanboys. I don't care if she's pretty cat girl. You know what's hotter than a cat girl? A good unit! Who's next? Oh, it's her fucking partner in crime. It's Kyza, or Kyza in the PAL version for some reason. Where the fuck does Kyza go? I feel like Kyza is actually, like, my least familiar unit. Kyza is one of those units that just kind of falls into the big nebulous area for me. Kyza is not good in any way. Everything I just said about Lyre pretty much applies to Kyza in a slightly less exaggerated way. This unit is fucking terrible. Like, he is god-awful. I'm going to place him... I'm going to place him at the top of F tier. I am. I'm going to place him at the top of F tier. And some people might think, oh, but he E tier unit, because he's not as bad as Lyre. He's basically just as fucking bad as Lyre. Like, Lyre is so terrible to the extent that even though Kyza is pretty much just Lyre, but better in every way. Like, I think Kyza has better stats than Lyre in basically every way except for res, which is absurd. Like, his speed is the same, his strength is higher, his skill is higher. And he's still hot fucking garbage. For the same reasons as Lyre. Number one, he's a Laguz. While his form is a bit better at Tiger, so he'll hit a little bit hard. Well, it's 1 might, fucking huge. Massive, absolutely gargantuan. The damage cannot be stated. Like, his damage is a little bit higher, but he's not doing enough damage. While he might double the occasional thing, he's not doing enough damage. While he might engage in combat, he's not doing enough damage. He's not doing enough damage! Except to my fucking microphone. Everything else. Laguz gay. I'm fucking pulling up the fingertips to get this. You can't hear this, it's radio, but it's fine. Laguz gauge, resource hog, half the time not doing anything, reduced XP gain, and I haven't actually checked his growth. Let me check his growth, fuck it. His growths are like average Laguz growth, they're nothing even that fantastic. 45% skill growth, whoop-de-fucking-do. So he's not even excelling in that area. And I do also know, like, even if though his speed growth is like okay at 35%, I think, I'm not going to check it again, you can't make me, fuck you. Who cares? Tiger has a speed cap of like 15, I want to say, which is insanely low. That's lower than a fucking Marshal, effectively, which is beyond stupid. Yeah, there is really no reason to talk about Kyza. The only reason he is better than Lyre is because his bases are slightly better. That's it. Everything else about this unit is complete and utter tripe. He comes with Quick Claw. Oh boy, I already went on my Quick Claw rant about how this fucking skill basically does nothing, and I will not mention it ever again. Just sell it. I think it's like 500 gold. I'd rather have 500 gold. That's basically a steel poleaxe. That's way more valuable than any of these two shitters. And yeah, I think people, for some reason, perceive Kyza as better than, like, Lyre. Like, Kyza is better than Lyre in the sense that 5 is higher than 4. Or, like, 2 is higher than 1. He is a 2 out of 10, while Lyre is a 1 out of 10. Yes. They're both fucking terrible. They both don't get a free deployment slot. Ever. Not once. From 3-4 onwards, you will need to deploy them manually, which means they don't get a free trial, effectively, like a lot of units. Literally every Grail Merc gets a free trial. Ranulf gets a free trial. These chuckle fucks don't! They're like I want to say they're like 2 of the few units in the game that don't even get a free trial. Like, Tanith and Sigrun both get a free trial as well, and they join much later. I think Janaff and Ulki, yeah, they get a free trial! These two just don't get a free trial! It's like the fucking developers knew they were terrible, and just decided to put them in the game anyway. I'm not going to talk about Kyza for any longer. Everything I said about Lyre applies to Kyza, except to an extremely, like, 1% lesser extent. Their stats are awful, their growths aren't good enough, Laguz, Gauge, fucking blows, Resource Hog, and the rest of the fucking lyrics. You know the deal at this point. Moving on. And who do we have next? Oh, it's 2 good units! Having talked about a bunch of really fucking terrible Laguz units, it's finally time to talk about the 2 good boys. The 2 bestest guys, the 2 pals. You need 2 cool guys? You can get Janaff and Ulki. I'm gonna talk about Janaff and Ulki basically at the same time, because they are effectively the same unit. And they are both very easy to talk about. Janaff and Ulki are B tier units. I'm going to place them... I'm gonna place them... here, like in the middle of B tier. I think Janaff and Ulki are really underrated units in Radiant Dawn, because these 2 are the only Laguz in the entire game that are generic and have to deal with all of the issues of being a Laguz, like Laguz gauge, and half the time they're not doing anything, half the time they just have to fucking take that Viagra and hope it, you know, perks up at the right time, and all of that garbage, and they're still really good. These 2 are still very strong units, despite all the shortcomings of regular Laguz units. And it's really, really simple for why these two are so good. It's nothing like super out of the ordinary or like you need to like dive into like 18 different layers of why this unit is so like powerful and you gotta look at the biorhythms and their growth. No, these units are good because their bases are fantastic. Both Janaff and Ulki have absolutely excellent bases and they're flyers and they're good because of that. That's it. It's literally as simple as that. Their growths don't matter, because chances are you're not going to use them in the super long term, like you're probably not going to bring them into the tower, although they are good candidates to bring into the tower, honestly, if you're not using Laguz Royals. These are probably the next best things. Yeah, no, their bases are just so, like, incredibly strong to the point where you get them from Chapter 3-7, they join not quite at the start of the chapter, but it's the same situation as Soth, where it's turn 3, so it's early enough to the point where they can still do stuff. And 3-7 can be kind of an awkward chapter, because you don't really do a whole lot in that particular instance. Like, it's mostly just waiting for the chapter to be over, because you can't get too close to the enemy army. It's like, oh, Black Knight's getting a little close. Zoinks! He might do some damage. Eeks! And while, like, the flyers just go ahead and murder everything and potentially rescue the ground-bound dwellers who can't move as fluently. Anyway, back to Janaff and Ulki. These two are really, really strong for this whole reason of, yes, their stats are fantastic. I want to say Janaff has, like, base 30 strength. I think Ulki's a little bit weaker, but he's a bit faster. The point being, their stats are so similar, like, the minor differences here and there aren't really that important. They're pretty much just negligible. They're effectively the same unit. The only difference being is that their personal skill, literally, I believe these two are the first characters to have personal skills in Fire Emblem, which is pretty cool. Insight and Vigilance, I believe they're called, are nice to have. They are just nice skills. Like, Janaff gets plus 20 hit and Ulki gets plus 20 avoid. And I believe Janaff also gets increased vision in Fog of War, which doesn't really matter for the most part. There's only one chapter that could be particularly useful in, which is 4-1, and even then it's like, Fog of War in that chapter isn't really that big of a deal. You kind of know where all the enemies are, because they're going to be running at you full stop. Like, there's a lot of units where I'll have to talk like, oh, Tyranio is... It always comes back to Tyranio, man! It's always like, I don't know how to compare this unit or talk about them in an interesting, like, analytical way, so I'll just bring it back to Tyranio. But yeah, no, with Janaff and Ulki, they are two dudes that fly and kill things real good. These dudes are like almost the Christmas calves of this game, rather than the actual Christmas calves, who are Oscar, who is pretty good, but kind of like, so-so towards the end of the game, and Kieran, who is just not that great. Whereas these two are great from the moment you get them, aside from the obvious, like, Laguz weaknesses of Laguz gauge and being a resource hog and stuff like that. But these two are so fucking good because they have 9 move and Canto and their flyers. Like, they are very, very, very good. As I've said previously, being a flyer is pretty much always good. It just means you get to ignore most of the mechanics on the map. In 3-7 especially, it just means they get to go and deal with all the annoying enemies on the map, like the Draco Knights and the mages who could potentially do some damage. They're just very, very good. They're very handy to have around. And also, I will say this, I feel like this goes under the radar a lot. Flyers in Radiant Dawn and Path of Radiance can't shove. Like, the Bee-Orc flyers can't shove, they can only rescue. But Hawks and Ravens can shove, meaning that they're flyers that can rescue and shove and have Canto, which is really, really fucking good. I want to say Hawks are probably the best Laguz type in the game, just because they have the highest move, they have the potential to shove and Canto and rescue all in one unit, which is really, really good, and they're just super, super viable in combat still. Like, that the ultimate utility Laguz, other than Herons, obviously, and they can still be rather valuable in combat. Yeah, I'm gonna just quickly take a gander at their growth. They're not even bad. Yeah, 40% strength on Janaff, 45 skill. That's not even that bad. Or rather, that's quite, like, decent for a Laguz, honestly. Like, yeah, no. Looking at Janaff's bases just makes units like Kyza and Lyre much more depressing, because they joined, what, 3 chapters earlier? And Lyre has a base strength of, I've already forgotten, it was like 7, wasn't it? And then Janaff comes in with like 12 more levels under his belt, the ability to fly. He comes with Wild Heart as well. And I do actually think if you're using Janaff or Ulki or both, you can totally just use both. You can absolutely slap Wild Heart on them, and that's still pretty good. They are definitely still fast enough to double things. They won't like one-round things. They one-round pretty much everything except for generals right off the bat when they join, by the way. Like, they are absurdly strong. They're not quite like royal level of strong, but they are pretty much just a step beneath. Like, Janaff starts with almost 40 skill, which is kind of monstrous. It means, I want to say Janaff is like one of those units where I don't think he can get below 100 hit unless he has like terrible biorhythm and the enemy has best biorhythm and like 120 avoid. I want to say even in that situation, he'll still have like 60 hit. Like, Janaff's reliability is just so disgusting, and Ulki is just as good. They are very much the same unit, and they are both very good. Their availability is probably their weakest aspect. Like, they do join pretty late in Part 3. They're only available for, I think, 4 chapters. What do they got? 3-7, 3-8, No, 5 chapters. They're available for endgame as well, and they are perfectly good there as well. And then, additionally, they are perfectly good into part 4. Like I said, their bases are legitimately just that good. Having this level of strength and speed and skill and being pretty durable as well. Like, I feel like the only things that really potentially pose a threat to these two Hawk boys is crossbows, which, again, aren't super frequent, but they're just frequent enough to the point where they can be a threat. So keep an eye out for that. Like, wind mages won't do anything. Wind mages are probably the least frequent type of mage, and the stats are so garbage, and their weapon type is so garbage, you don't need to worry about them in the slightest. Just go point and click, delete them off the face of the earth. Just point and click them straight into the grave, and everyone will fucking thank you for it. Yeah, no, they're good units. Their growth rates basically don't matter, because they start so high level that they're not going to gain much. I will say Janaff starts at level 29, which means he's 1 level away from being able to use the Satori sign, which is quite nice. And something I underrated with units like Ulki and Vika and just general flyers, just flyers in general, is having a unit that can fly into combat, deal a good amount of damage and canto out so you can finish off what is probably a general who is super cumbersome to kill, is valuable. So I'm reconsidering exactly where Vika and Ulki are. They might go up. Ulki in general, Ulki's probably a little bit low, but I'm going to save moving units around until we've actually placed all like 75 of these fuckers. But yeah, these two are pretty much the middle of B tier. I don't think I have any issues with that. I'd say they're better than Nyla just because their availability is better. And they're not that much worse than Nyla in terms of combat. That's the craziest part. Like, the only reason they're worse than Nyla is because they don't get form shift and Nyla does. In every other regard, they're better. They can fly, their bases are almost the same. Like, they're a couple points lower, but it's one of those situations where their damage and speed is so overkill that it kind of doesn't matter that they're a couple points lower. They're just more like, being a fucking flyer is so good, man. It's really good. Oh, I don't have flyer bias at all. I don't have flyers. They are very, very good in this game. Very underrated, I think. 2 of the most underrated units in this game. I think if they had slightly better availability, they could go even higher. I think that's the main thing that's holding them back, other than the fact that, yes, they are obviously Lagoos, and unless you get stuff like Lagoos gems, they're going to have to deal with the old Olivigrass Snort of 2011. They're still very good. Very, very strong player phase units, much like Shinon. I very much appreciate their contributions to the army. Thanks, Hawk boys. Okay, and moving on, it's 2 more flyers! Oh! It's Sigrun and Tanith. It's the girls! Boys, lads. Lasses. I have no idea where Sigrun and Tanith go. I'm gonna place them in C tier for now, but I'm not entirely sure where they go. They're high C. I'm gonna place them, I want to say just around where Alincia is. I'm also gonna move Soren a little bit down, I think. I'm moving below Brom. I think Alincia's a bit better. Sigrun and Tanith, I'm just gonna rate them together. Again, like Janaff and Ulki. It's pretty much just the gender swap versions of Janaff and Ulki, because they serve a very similar purpose. These are 2 flyers that don't kill everything, which is unfortunate. Sigrun and Tanith are very, very similar units. They are both promoted Pegasus Knights. They're both Falcon Knights, I believe. And they have a litany of issues, but they are still pretty decent units, I think. I'm gonna go over what they do well first. Number 1, they are flyers. Flyers are always good. You get them from 311. They are absolutely invaluable in that chapter because you need flyers to deal with the Pitfall bullshit. God, I hate Pitfalls so much. Just random 311 run. I can't believe they made it through all of Radiant Dawn without reusing a single map, and then they got to 311. It's like, oh yeah, we haven't reused a single map from Path of Radiance. Maybe we should do that. And they picked like the worst map from Path of Radiance. I can't believe I had to do the Great Bridge twice. I can't believe I had to back up on the Great Bridge and take it in reverse. Anyway, they are very, very good on that map just because the only way to stop pitfalls is to basically place a flyer on a pitfall, and it allows infantry and cabs and armors and all that to just move across the pitfalls without falling through, which is very nice. That's good. They both start at a very, very high level. Sigrun especially starts at level 19, which is literally 1 level away from promotion, to the point where I'm wondering why they didn't just make her a Seraph Knight to begin with. And Tanith, I believe, starts at like level 16? Both very, very high. Their bases are both okay. I don't have too many issues with them. I have some issues. They should just be a little bit stronger. That's my biggest issue with them, is they should just be a tiny bit stronger. Not too much. Not too much. Don't make them too strong. Don't have flyers dominate. It's not like that's happening already with Harm, like slaughtering the right half of the battlefield. No, we need to make it so this dainty Pegasus Knight has 18 strength as a level 19 fucking Falco Knight. That's not good enough. That's not good enough. 18 strength just isn't good enough. Yeah, let me go over Sigrun's problems first, then we'll get to Tanith. Sigrun is she the better of the 2? I'd say Sigrun's a little bit better than Tanith. Oh, actually, you know what? No, I'm not even going to say that. I think they're the exact same unit. Sigrun is slightly faster than Tanith. Tanith hits slightly harder. I want to say their tank is like their bulk is basically exactly the same. Because I think Sigrun has higher defense and res, but Tanith has higher HP, so it kind of just evens out. And literally the only thing Sigrun has over Tanith is slightly higher weapon ranks and a higher level. But chances are you're not going to, if you're choosing to level up Sigrun is also force deployed. Yeah, Sigrun is force deployed, which means she gets effectively like one more free chapter over Tanith, but Tanith is also force deployed in 311, so it's not that big of a deal. And chances are if you're deciding to use one or both of them, you're probably not going to give them too much XP. You get a couple of Master Crowns prior to this, and Sigrun is definitely a good candidate for it if you want to use her. She will promote into Seraph Knight, which is an okay class. It's not the best. I really, really wish Seraph Knight just got staves, man. Like, Seraph Knight doesn't get anything unique upon promotion except for stun, and while stun is a decent promotional skill, it's not that good. I'm just going to take a quick look at Seraph Knight's promotion gains. What does Seraph Knight get? Seraph Knight gets plus 4 HP, plus 3 strength, plus 4 magic, plus 2 skill, speed, plus 3 defense, and plus 4 res. Okay, so if you just slap a Master Crown on Sigrun right away, her stats actually get much, much better. Who'd have thought a promotion would make your stats better? Yeah, I'm really wondering why she doesn't just start promoted. She'd be so much better. And she'd also make Tanith a little bit better, because it means you wouldn't have to waste a Master Crown on Sigrun just to get her going. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the case is like this. I think if you want to use Sigrun or Tanith, I feel like you're only going to use one, just because, again, deployment slots are kind of limited, and you've been using the Grail Mercs up to that point probably super heavily. Like, unless you've been preparing your army specifically for these units, chances are you're not going to field both of them. Like, you'll field Sigrun, obviously, because she's free, but you might not use her that much, because 18 strength paired with, like, kind of iffy might on lances means that Sigrun isn't going to do that much in combat. Like, 24 speed is also not enough to double everything. Like, it's not that high. It's enough to double some things, but it's not, like, consistent enough to be a valuable asset, so to say. Like, Sigrun's stats are just very, very middling. Unless you slap a Master Crown on her, she's not going to do very much. Even if you do slap a Master Crown on her, she's not going to do that much. Like, 21 strength still isn't that high. 26 speed is, like, a good amount. It's not enough to double everything, because enemies get enemies get stronger pretty quickly, sorry to say. So I think she just joins a little bit too late for my liking. That being said, she is still good. She is still a valuable unit. I forget if she's force deployed in part 4. If she is force deployed in part 4, then yeah, she's actually very, very good. Because that means she's force deployed for every single chapter she's in before the tower. I haven't talked about their availability, by the way. It's very, very simple. Their availability is shit. It's really bad. Like, they're only available for 4 chapters before the tower, which is really fucking bad. In fact, where did I place them on the tier list? Who are they above? I'm not sure. They're definitely not B tier units. Like, they are decent, but I feel like Pegasus Knights in general just aren't that great in this game because their stats are so mediocre, and half the time their availability is garbage. Not even half the time. I'd say all the time their availability is garbage. Marcia's availability is kind of eh, and Tanith and Sigrun's availability is just flat out bad. Like, no ifs or buts on that one. They were available for 4 chapters before part 4 endgame. That's fucking terrible. And, like, they don't have any niches, so to say, compared to a lot of other units. Like, I'm just going to compare them to the 2 units that are literally directly above them with Janaff and Ulki. Janaff and Ulki join earlier, shred through everything with their monstrously high stats, and their only weaknesses is the fact that they are Laguz units. If those 2 had Form Shift, those fuckers would be an A tier, no question. I'd almost be tempted to put them in S tier if they had Form Shift. They'd be fucking despicable. Meanwhile, Sigrun and Tanith join in 311, the Great Bridge, and they're just not doing very much other than they're basically just crossing guards for your infantry units in 311, because they don't do enough damage and they're not tanky enough to survive. And I want to say there's ballistas on that map as well, which also screws over flyers. Like, that is a good amount of archers, archers and warriors with crossbows in general. Like, the fucking boss of 311 is a boss with a crossbow. They are definitely plentiful enough to the point where they will have to think about position. You will have to think about positioning them correctly. And unlike Janaff and Ulki, who have absurdly high avoid, I want to say these 2 don't have a void that's high enough to the point where they can consistently dodge archers in enemy phase. Like, you cannot leave them next to an archer, they will get shredded. And their HP isn't, like, for fuck's sake, Janaff and Ulki have basically double their HP total. And while these 2 have potential enemy phase, because, you can give them spears and sonic swords, and wham, sonic sword, 4 times 2, take that! Wow, what an enemy phase, it's so good. They're not tanky enough to, be genuinely good enemy phase units. Unlike someone like Ha, who's basically invincible. Or Ike, who can just equip the Ragnell. Ike gets the fucking Ragnell in that chapter as well, man. These 2 ain't doing nothing. It's like the game's rooting against them. Like, the moment Ike gets his hand on that fucking giant butter sword, the game's over. Ike can now basically solo the rest of the game. Yeah, I think Tanith and are these CT units? They're actually not that great, but I feel like their bases are high enough to the point where if you haven't been using Grail Mercenaries particularly effectively, like, if your other units have fallen behind due to crappy growths or dying or what have you, they can be good replacement units. Like, if you just need a good tier 3 unit, you can just slap a Master Crown on Sigrun or Tanith. Like, you can pick either. Hell, you can do it on both if you want. Maybe you really like flyers. And I will say they have pretty good growths for the most part, if I remember correctly. Like, Sigrun is... wow, holy shit, Sigrun's growths are really bad. What the fuck? Why are her growths so bad? Okay, then definitely don't give XP to Sigrun. Wow, these growths are really fucking terrible. Why does she have a 25% speed growth? Alright, actually, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and say Tanith is a bit better than Sigrun, just because Tanith's growths are, like, actually fine. Like, 55% strength, 75% skill is great. 40% speed is a little bit low, but it's, like, fine. And her defensive growths are, like, okay. I'd say, yeah. Oh, Tanith also has Earth Affinity. You know how much I jerk off Earth Affinity. So yeah, I'd say Tanith's actually probably a little bit better. Yeah, Tanith and Sigrun are kind of simple in the sense that they both have good strengths with a decent class and a good starting level, okay affinity, or good affinities for the most part, good weapon ranks, okay-ish growths, and decent bases, but I feel like they just fall flat in a lot of areas. Like, they're just not dealing enough damage, and while they have good utility in 311, they can rescue drop and do all that, all the traditional fly utility shenanigans, which is always helpful, but it's not completely unique to them. So to say, you have Master at this point, Ha's been doing it for God knows how long at this point, you have Janaff and Ulki who can probably do it. I just feel like they fall short in a lot of areas, but they are still decent units. They are definitely some of the better units in C tier. I think their biggest issue is just availability being crappy and their bases being a little bit disappointing. Thanks, Tanith and Sigrun. The boys win this one. Girls will get them next time. And that'll conclude Part 3. Congratulations, everyone. We're over 75% of the way through. All we have left is Part 4, which will be coming relatively soon. You know the deal at this point. This is not your first rodeo. I'm not going to treat you like a fool. Part 4 will be done in like 2-3 weeks, maybe 4 months. Who knows? 2 years? 8 years? The end of the millennia? We'll see. It'll appear at some point in your timeline and you'll get to watch it and potentially enjoy it. Anyway, I will see y'all next time for Part 4 and moving units around, so feel free to stay moderately excited for that. Not too excited, just excited enough for you to, remain engaged. Anyway, I will see you all next time. Have a great week, /day, /month, /hour, /minute, however much time you have, everyone. Time is fleeting, spend it well. Goodbye.